pecuniary interest? Being done, we will proceed to the adoption of the minutes of the April 26, 2023 SBA meeting. Sorry, rushing right through. Yes, I have a motion to adopt the agenda. That I was going to say member vice chair, Wick and member Day. Thank you. Take a while to get my head corrected. So now moving to the adoption of the minutes of April 26, 2023 SBA meeting. Giving everybody has had a chance to look over those. Questions or comments? And if not, I will move that the minutes of the February 26, 2023 Prairie Sauble Source Protection Authority meeting be adopted and distributed. And I will move on. Member Mackey, member Day, thank you. All in favor? Correspondence. There was a letter from the Risk Management Office dated January 31st. Attached. Yes. Anything writing from that? If not, reports. So we do have a program report. Okay, can be presented. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it would be a good chance to give a little bit of an update in terms of the source water program, what's going on with the plan. The couple wells here for Lee and Minto are not in the Great Sauble watershed, but they're in the Sargent watershed. But still good to know in terms of plan amendments. So in Ripley, they're abandoning original well 1, replaced by well 2. And so whenever a well like that comes offline like permanently, the source protection program would then go into the mapping and adjust the protection area so that, you know, properties that were previously included in that protection zone would fall out of that going forward. So the way the source protection program, obviously, it only applies to the areas where there are active municipal wells. In Minto Pines, there's a new well that's coming online. And it's, in a way, it's good that it's very close to the old well, so it's only 6 meters away, and it's drilled to a very similar depth as the old well. So we have confirmation from the reports and the pump tests that it's in the same aquifer, and therefore the protection zone that we have in place will still apply. So it doesn't require a whole remodeling to take place, but it requires an adjustment. So working with staff to do the GIS work, make those amendments, and we'll be including those in our next updates to the plan. Closer to home in Chesley, there's plans for a new municipal well number 4. This has been in the works now for a little while, and they've been doing some well testing as well for the new test well that they have in place. So far, it's going fairly well. They think it's going to be a viable option, but they are still waiting for final testing to take place to make sure that there aren't adverse impacts to other property owners and to make sure that water quality is sufficient and so on. So the plans are to go to public consultation in April. So we're just on hold there until we get the technical studies completed and submitted to us for review. When we do get those, I will bring them to this board as the authority, because we have a requirement, responsibility responsibility under the Clean Water Act to issue a notice that all the technical analysis is done accurately, and then they can go to the next stage of submitting the province for a drinking water works permit. So it is a step in the process, and I'll make sure to bring that with all the information when we have it. We try to keep these things moving because we don't ever want to be the bottleneck in the approval process. So when we get things, we try to move it through quickly and communicate quite regularly with the municipality to make sure we're lined up for that to complete that requirement. The last little update here is around the Kimberley Anavic Talisman well. So backing up a little bit, due to the karst nature of the surrounding area that is around the well, there's been a recorded sort of understanding that the original delineation, there was a high level of uncertainty around the protection. So just because of the nature of the complexity of the groundwater in the karst features around. We actually also, under the Source Protection Program, a study conducted back in 2009, looking at some of those limitations in the original model. So that information was documented, and it was in our original assessment report. Now moving forward, more recently, there's some development proposals in the area. There's interest from groups, and so we've been working with those groups in terms of understanding what information was in our plan and how we delineated and what kind of data was used to create the protection zone. And also, expressing to them there were limitations at the time and what were documented. So we're at the point now where we're revisiting or looking to revisit the modeling that was done and looking to get some funding from the province. In our recent submission, we asked for some additional funding to reevaluate the protection zone and to do some further karst study and analysis in that area specifically. So that's something that we've asked for. We're still waiting for approval from the province, but we're already starting to talk with the municipality, with the staff, and with our the past karst expert, so the person that did the original study, to just get some more information and see if they're willing to give us some advice on proceeding with that. So that's the status of it at this point. We're hoping that we get the funding, and I think it would help the municipality. It helps us. Like, the intent is to redefine the protection zone and make sure it captures the whole area that could be influenced by activities on the ground, and so we think it's a worthwhile thing to do at this time, and I think it would help decision makers across the board. So those are some updates from the program.
Thank you, Carl. That's great. Does anybody have any questions? You got awfully easy on this. Thank you very much for the presentation. I move that the Gray Sauble Source Protection Authority receive the program report 6A for information. Member Harold and Third Secretary Member Bell. Thank you. All in favor? Yeah, thank you. On to new business. There is to be an SPC Group 2 representative appointment, and I would move that the Gray Sauble Source Protection Authority, as the lead authority, appoints Jim Hanna to the Group 2 Municipal Representative Sector on the Source Protection Committee pursuant to OREG 28807 Section 3 of the Clean Water Act. And I move on technically. Member Gregg and Member Mackey. Thank you. Any questions? Comments?
Seems like
Member Gregg.
he seems like an excellent and well-qualified individual to join the committee, so I think we're all look forward to having his involvement.
Excellent, thank you very much. Moving on to, is there any other business? Seeing none. Thank you for the Source Protection Authority meeting, and we will adjourn that meeting so we can go on to next business. Take a break, everybody good? By the way, thank you, John, Jen, Alex, for joining us online. You saved yourself a horrible drive today, so thank you.
Go downstairs. I need the password. So I know it's a word.
Oh,
And then once
I have it. Hang on, I needed the same thing.
Okay.
Tobin has it.
2 meetings in a row, I've had tremendous grief. They can't get the cellular service. One sign?
Did you manage to get on your last session? No, I did Scott or I. Okay, so it's not just us.
All right. Well, I got it. So we will, I'll call to order the Great Sauble Conservation Authority Full Authority meeting of Wednesday, February 28th, 2024. So we acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. And further, give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all diverse people. One thing about the land acknowledgement, I had this conversation with Nadia and Tim earlier, not to you want to listen to me all the time, but what we do at our own council, we actually share that opportunity for different people to read it. And I think it's a good idea just because it does, again, they can put their own thoughts additional to that as well. So in future, if everyone's agreeable, I would throw that open to anyone to take part, wishes to take part. Again, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in today's meeting? Being none. Is there any call for additional agenda items? Member Mackey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, doesn't really have to be an agenda item, but if I could have the floor for just a minute, just to update the committee. I attended a tile drainage day that was put on by Gray Ag Services as well as the Conservation Authority, and it was about a month ago, and it was really well attended. There was about 60 participants. Ian Erickson was there from Gray Sauble, as well as Keith Reed, and had a really informative session. I think a lot of the farmers that were there picked up a lot of valuable information. I think it was really good PR for us to be working in conjunction with Gray Ag Services. There's 2 or 3 members of our Ag Advisory Board in attendance, and certainly representing our municipality. We had our Director of Operations also there. A tremendous amount of knowledge was gained from my perspective, and I think from most people attending. The panelists were very well informed and certainly able to answer questions that were presented. So I'd just like to thank the authority for that day. I think we should continue to this great PR work with our ag community, who own most of the watershed. So
yeah, so that makes great thing to take back to the ag community as well. Information on that. Excellent, thanks, Mike. Anything else for the agenda items? If There are no additional. I would call the Gray Sauble Conservation Authority Board of Directors approve the agenda of February 28th, 2024. Move and second, roll, please. Member Farmer and Member Tuvick. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Approval of the minutes of January 24th, 2024. Attachment one in your package. I'm sure everyone has had a chance to review those minutes. I would move that the Gray Sauble Conservation Authority Board of Directors approve the full authority minutes of January 24th, 2024. Again, member and seconder, please. Member Greg and member Mackey. Member Greg?
I would just note on page 5, Sue Carlton declined her nomination for chair, and thanks to Member Scott Gregg. That should be corrected to Member Mackey, and the secretary's already gathered.
Thank you. Anything else on the minutes? Right. I have a vote for that, please. To accept them, please. All in favor? Thank you, Karen. Business out of minutes, none at this time. So today we do have a delegation from the Beaver Valley Destination Stewardship. So we invite them to have 10 minutes to address the board. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. Is someone going to run the slides for me? Great. Well, good afternoon, board members. I hope to speak with you, Chair, before we started, just to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is it
Uric.
Yuri?
Uric. And believe me, it's been pronounced many times.
It's nice to be here with the board and the chair, and deputy chair Viva. And Kim, Angela as well, CEO and staff. Good to be back here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kathy Little, member of the core group for Beaver Valley Destination Stewardship. And with me here today are core group members Stacey Howe and Tamara Christian and last Kate. Kate, oh, Kate's Kate Russell. So, how many of you are familiar with destination stewardship? Heard the term? For core group members, it was just about a year ago that we first encountered the term destination stewardship. And since that time, we've been busy, we've organized, and we've been doing a lot of work. And so that's why we're here today, is to share with you what we've been doing, who we are, what we've been doing, and more importantly, what that means for you. Can I just press the space bar? So destination stewardship is the process by which local communities, governments, business, the tourism industry take a multi-stakeholder approach to maintaining the unique natural and cultural assets of the region. It's about protecting the very qualities that make a place first and foremost a wonderful place to live, with the added benefit of being a wonderful place to visit. And this definition comes from the Destination Stewardship Center in Washington, D.C., which is founded and is now led by Jonathan Turtellow, longtime editor of National Geographic in the tourism division. And Jonathan toured the Valley area last April, presented to a full house at the Kimberley Hall, and met with local councils and staff to introduce them to the idea of destination stewardship. So we are a core group whose purpose is to build on the principles of destination stewardship using a collaborative approach, so the Beaver Valley becomes a more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable destination. And so what are these guiding principles? First of all, realizing that most tourism interacts with Beaver Valley and the surrounding area, not only with the tourism businesses, but also its ecosystems, aesthetic, natural resources, built infrastructure, cultural assets and traditions, communities of diverse perspectives, all with the shared love of our collective place. Secondly, retain and enhance the Beaver Valley's iconic appeal, encourage tourism policies and business practices that protect and benefit the natural and cultural assets, including river health and its resources. Third, encourage benefits such as public land protection, ecosystem diversity, river health, small business development, sustainable local supply chains, and strive to improve the quality of life for residents who could be negatively impacted or managed well. Fourth, manage tourism based on quality of visitation rather than quantity of visitors. Recognize that benefits go beyond the immediate financial transactions. It's more than just heads and beds. Seek for resilience and equity, that we accommodate visitors from different demographics so that those who have limited opportunities for recreation or engaging with nature will have an invitation to come to the valley. And lastly, emphasize collaboration with government, businesses, civic organizations, researchers and scientists, citizens groups, all essential for effective engagement and good destination stewardship. So how did we delineate the outreach area for the Beaver Valley? For us, the Beaver River watershed map does represent already inclusivity, resilience, and sustainability. It's a very natural delineation of our outreach, and includes many communities connected to the valley through local business and commerce, through interest in geology, ecology, biodiversity, river health, rural agriculture, cultural traditions, and indigenous histories. Or simply, it's just a shared enjoyment of the river, the escarpment, and the green space. We value the Grey Sauble vision of a healthy watershed environment in balance with the needs of society. We appreciate the Conservation Authority watershed model that has worked effectively for decades through collaboration that spans jurisdictional boundaries. So where did we get our start? It was actually the Georgian Bay Geopark folks who told us about destination stewardship and put us in touch with Jonathan Turtellow. The Georgian Bay Geopark tells the story of deep time. Each watershed around the bay has a story, and the Beaver River watershed is the story of the last ice age and the first people to live here. And we're grateful to Georgian Bay Geopark for providing these images that we can share with you, and also their vision and mission, which is a UNESCO Global Geopark for all of Georgian Bay, has the potential to bring together municipalities, First Nations, conservation groups, seasonal and permanent residents, educators, and businesses, in a shared mission that will showcase the Bay's extraordinary geoheritage to Canada and the world, building knowledge and community resilience, while promoting sustainable tourism and long-term economic development. Next. In the past year or more, like the last 6 months, we have made presentations to Grey Highlands, to the town of Blue Mountains, to community groups such as the Beaver River Watershed Initiative and the Collingwood Climate Action Now Network, In 2024, we've begun hosting monthly stewardship circles, where groups come together to share with each other who they are, what they do, what they have, what they need, strengthening the bonds between people and building robust volunteer networks. This postcard uses images from our very active Instagram page, highlighting four-season recreation, local agriculture, local attractions, and you'll see Eugenie Falls there, local businesses, and always the beautiful Beaver Valley, which happens to be the name of our Instagram page. We're excited about the future. We have got funding from the Grossmoor Institute of Sustainable Tourism to participate in activating community tourism program, or Activate for short. Activate supports citizen-led approaches to community development. And it is the foundational tourism piece, community development, because, as they say, we believe that a great place to live is a great place to visit. Beaver Valley Destination Stewardship is adopting sociocracy. Sociocracy is a governance system based on non-hierarchical organization, decision-making based on consent. And I'm currently enrolled in the Sociocracy for All Academy, where I will be certified as a practitioner and a facilitator for our group and other groups that are affiliated with us to take advantage. We're building a presence on social media on a platform called Hilo. It's based on sociocratic principles, and it will enhance opportunities for online networking between people and groups who connect or reconnect at our circles. We're continuing with our very successful stewardship circles, and the next one is on Monday, March the 11th. We're excited to welcome Mike Robbins, who's a tourism expert, and he will be presenting on the Georgian Bay Geopark. And there will be another presentation as well that night by Robert Bircher, who I think many of you know, local author on Indigenous history of the Beaver River watershed. So we warmly invite you all to attend, staff and board members to attend our stewardship circle for what promises to be a very interesting and informative evening. And then lastly, in a few weeks, we will be having our first official meeting with Great Highlands, Canada Mountains, Grey County, and RTO 7, who are the project partners in the new Beaver Valley Sustainable Tourism Strategy. These semi-annual meetings are part of the Year 1 Action Plan for one of the two strategy goals, which is destination stakeholders are working efficiently and effectively together to shape and deliver tourism sustainably. We don't think anyone would disagree that tourism management is challenging and complex, often because it involves so many different stakeholders with different mandates and perspectives. And many regions around the world have started creating destination stewardship councils that include the public, private, and civic sectors. In the past, the civil sector, or more accurately, the community, has often been overlooked in tourism management planning. But evidence shows that places that manage the collaborative approach, effectively engaging all three sectors, are best able to manage tourism effectively. And community can be key to finding solutions to some of our tourism challenges. Finally, our ask of you is simple. We welcome the opportunity to work with you in the future. We believe that we can help raise awareness and connect people and groups in the Beaver River watershed with Sauble, your mandate, your programs. We believe we can help promote and expand the work of the Sauble Conservation Foundation in the Beaver River watershed. And we hope, as a start, you will join us at the next stewardship circle on Monday, March 11th. And we warmly invite you to make a presentation to one of our stewardship circles in the future. So that wraps it up for me. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them, or I do have some experts on over here to help me if they can better provide an answer. I just wanted to note your comment about the land acknowledgement, how Beaver Valley Destination Stewardship is incorporating a similar method where we have different people usually young people who come forward and get the land acknowledgement at our stewardship circles. So we appreciate the thought.
Thank you very much, Kathy. It's an excellent presentation and good work. It's really encouraging. Thank selfishly me for that little touch of Beaver Valley in there. So we're very pleased. And it's really Robert Bircher is such a great help and addition and resource. So he'll be really wonderful help for you. Are there any questions for Member Day?
I've never heard of destination stewardship. I think it's been I'm curious about it. It seems similar to the steward concept and people who are doing something maybe with some additional more modern society. What I remain a little bit confused on, and I think you can clarify, is destination stewardship a set of principles that you could follow, or is it a certification program where a ultimate goal would be to be certified as a destination stewardship?
Yeah, there are some certification bodies that there are criteria that destinations have to meet to be certified as a destination and not as a destination. Our approach is that we're using destination stewardship principles to shape what we do. So one of the models that we looked at was the Frontman Karsh biosphere, which is into Endeavour, which is just to the east of us. And we really liked the approach that they had taken. Everywhere's a little bit different, but they were, their community organization had actually developed a local certification program where local businesses could participate, be trained, and in that way demonstrate that they were following the destination stewardship principles. And then I think it's been a while since I did that, but that information was used to populate like a tourism map. That these are the places and businesses that could be curated for individual experience. So depending on that person who was coming to the area, their interest was specific, and they could use the map to curate where they went and what was available. So no, we're not involved in certification right now. We're just trying to spread the word and develop ourselves and create those networks, and certainly collaborate with the three different sectors that I mentioned. But that may be something that could evolve in the future. We don't serve, we're not about setting the agenda. It's just we are creating a space for these conversations to happen. What was your first question? Ecotourism. Ecotourism sort of evolved into geotourism. So Eco was a little bit limiting as it related to the environment. Geotourism is a broader concept involving all the different areas that we think about related to geographical studies. It could involve many different things. So that was an evolution, and this destination stewardship evolved out of it. There are a lot of similarities with the geotourism.
Member Maxwell, you have a question?
Well, I actually have a comment. Can you hear me?
You can be a little louder. You're pretty faint.
Okay, can you hear that now?
We can hear you. If you can speak up a little, and I think we're trying to do some volume here.
Okay, so through the chair, I just wanted to thank Kathy for the presentation. I've attended the one in Rockland, and also their organization came to town Blue Mountains. And what strikes me about this organization, and particularly for, I guess, Grey Highlands and the town of Blue Mountains, they understand that you need to manage tourism in order to protect the very reason why people come here. So I'm glad that they're out in front of this, and we need more organizations participating like this. Thank you.
Thank you. I will chime in a little bit there and say, once again, just in that little corner of Beaver Valley. So I'm going to say Beaver would like to take advantage of that as well. When you said you had made a couple of presentations to council, I didn't know whether you were planning to visit Beaver or not. but we would love to, I think our council would love to hear about your plans as well.
For inviting us, we'll just take a straw vote here. All in favor? No objections, right?
That was a tough stuff. Any other questions? Okay.
I suppose one follow-up question, we were asked to be open to work with you in the works, and you would like a presentation from the conservation board in the future. So I don't know if that's something that's back to the to also, or if we should talk about it further.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I think that's more of an operating item, so staff can definitely look into that, take care of that as the year progresses.
So, I don't think there's anything else. So thank you very much, Kathy, for the presentation. And thank you to your team for joining us today and making us aware, because you're right, this was a bit of an education. We're aware of this initiative. So congratulations and good work.
Thank you very much, and take care, everybody.
Moving on, we have another presentation, the schematic design of the GSEA Administrative Center. We have the architect online, actually. Hello, Luke.
Hi, everyone.
You would like to
Hello.
do a presentation?
Yes. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me okay in the boardroom?
Yes.
Great. Well, hi, everyone. Nice to see you. I will attempt to share my screen. I have the presentation ready here. Just one second. There we go. Can you see that okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. I can't see any of you anymore because my screen is now this full presentation, but thanks for having me here today. We're excited to present the schematic design for the center. It's been a really fun process getting to this point and sort of developing both an interesting program, but we also really love kind of the original architecture of the older building that just needs to be updated. So coming up with some new architectural solutions that enhance the old structure and some of its beautiful parts, and then makes the entire project better as a whole. So I'm just going to go through this full presentation, and there was an earlier concept presentation last year, so I'll repeat a little bit of that for those who weren't involved in that meeting. I'll discuss the site plan. I'll show you some 3D views that we've come up with for the design, and then I'll have the updated floor plans to show as well. So when we started this process over a year ago, we started looking at the existing building and all its pros and cons and how it connects to the site and how you access it by car. And so we looked at the building, and it has those interesting landscape mounds at 3 of the entries, but not the 4th. And then there's issues regarding parking and access by driveway. And so this site plan kind of started to look at these different connections and possibilities, including the extended road to allow the public to access the parking lot from the other end, which allows the staff to access the staff parking lot at this end. So how the building is going to be used by visitors will rotate, which means that the main entrance for visitors will be at this far corner. And that's where we're going to propose a small addition that does many things. So that's what the main part of this design presentation will be. So this addition, as I mentioned, the 3 other entries have landscape kind of berms that goes around them. So this addition is kind of mimicking one and creating a new berm at this end, which is also going to be the new accessible entry. So because of the different grades of the lower level and the upper level of this building, we've created a an addition that is actually flat and accessible to the parking lot. And when you come into the building, you can go up to the upper level or down to the lower level. And this allows for an accessible lift, elevator lift to be placed here, as well as a stair. And I'll show you the floor plans and views in much more detail. But the idea is that this entry is now going to be a focal beacon, and it's going to show, obviously, to any visitors who come from either way into the parking area around the building, what the main entrance is. And there's been a lot of confusion on people going up to the staff entry or to an entry that's closed, and the back entry was accessible and all that. So we've tried to clean that all up by creating one main central visitor entry. And aside from just flexibility, that entry is also going to be, a functional space that can be used for other sort of events, displays, exhibits. And I'll get into that a little bit more, because we've been able to create an addition and a planning of the main space that allows for flexibility for for larger scale events or rentals, aside from the board meetings. And I'll look at that and plan a little bit more as well. We started to look at materials and get a sense of, we've spent some time at the falls, which are quite beautiful, and we're doing some other work in the area, working with a lot of the quarries up there too. So started to connect to the stone of that area of Ontario and going to the quarries and starting to think about how to connect the material palette of the addition with the falls, but at the same time dealing with this older brick building, and how do you kind of work with the geometries of that older building with the brown brick of that older building. So we just have this inspiration page where we took some photos of sort of surrounding locations, but also started thinking about how the built form of the addition could respond to that similar type of geometry or geology that surrounds the building. So jumping into a 3D model, which I'll show you more views later that are colored and down sort of to like at eye level. But I just wanted to give a heads up of what's happening here for those who haven't seen previously. So the existing building is back in here, if you could see my mouse, and the addition is at this entry here. And so this part is the addition. There is an existing brick entry, which is two walls like this, which we're kind of enveloping as part of this entry. We're putting the lift in there and a new stair. And this is flat to the parking area. So you're going to have kind of this new forecourt, which is a place where people could get dropped off for events or for meetings or get picked up or whatever. So there's a bit of a forecourt to the parking lot here. And as you enter towards the building, each side of the building has a slight landscape mound, which you'll see later in the views. And that kind of connects back to this idea that each of these four corners originally in the architecture of the building had sort of a bit of a landscape feature. And then the landscape goes down so that the lower floors, as you can see here, have great light. So the lower floor and the upper floor, the lower floor does have very beautiful windows, even though it's the lower floor. It's not a basement, because the landscape goes down between these corners. So I'll jump into some of the larger views to get into sort of material and how this works, but I just wanted to kind of get everyone to understand where this addition is within the context of the building. So this is just jumping into some of the 3D views that we've been working on. So the addition has this new vestibule that comes out, and then it's a story and a half tall, because it doesn't have to be full 2 stories tall, because you're entering at sort of a mid-grade level flat. And then you go up 3/4 of a story and down 1/4 of a story. And there's also a lift in there. So what we wanted to do is to create a pavilion that's part of this addition that responds to the surrounding landscape on each side. So on the north side, there's this long open window, which opens to a beautiful like the kind of backyard to the building, which is also part of the forest. So there's going to be a beautiful view to the north. To the south, we have very tall windows, which is going to bring all the light into this space. And then as you move up the stairs, you go up in through this space to the main level, and there's going to be a new window. This window of the addition is what you could actually look out towards the landscape and towards the conservation area around. So in this view, we're playing with some of the potential stone options that we're looking at as a material, and I'll show you an additional material option after as well. This is a view from the parking lot, and you could see the existing brick. This is just a computer model, but the existing brown brick in the background with the concrete base of the building. We're trying to use that as a sort of a connection piece to this new building. And although we don't want to use the same brick as the old building, because you can never get it to look the same for an old brick, but also we want the entry to be obviously the place you go to get into this building for the public. So this is the vertical lines across here. This is going to be some sort of solar screen, because as we kind of rotate toward this south corner, I mean, getting lots of light is great, but it's also, we're trying to deal with the heat gain. So we're going to have a bit of a solar shade system in here, and we'll show that on the interior. So Tim and everyone, can you still hear and see everything okay?
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
Great. This is just rotating a little bit more and looking at that same view as you kind of enter into the space. You can see these two concrete walls are similar concrete to what's the existing base of the building here, and they kind of berm up. So, we're not creating a huge hill or anything, but we are creating a bit of a berm so that when you're inside, you're actually at level with the ground. And this is a view from this more south corner. So this is jumping inside, which I think looks really great. Our team, Dwayne, who was on the call as well, and our team have been working on how the layout works, because there's been a lot of back and forth with your team on that side in terms of programming and how everything's going to work. So this is as you walk through the vestibule and you enter into the building. So on the right would be the stair that leads up to this. You can see the existing main level up there. This is that large fireplace, which we're cleaning up and opening up, and not as a fireplace, but opening up in terms of seating and a use, and replacing that clerestory skylight around it. So the wood that's in that existing building on the ceiling, which is quite nice, we're carrying into this space as a new wood ceiling. And then we might carry some of the stone into the walls as some material, and potentially into the floor. There's beautiful stone flooring from that quarry as a possibility as well. So kind of linking to the surrounding materials, I think, is a nice way. And although the addition is modern looking, the building itself is pretty modern, like from the 70s. It's a pretty cool design back in the day. So this kind of deals with those same warm materials back from that age of modernism. And the form is a little bit more modern in this context, but it does a lot of things. So as you come inside, this is that solar shading I was mentioning on the left, but there's going to be a large display. Maybe it's a map of the whole conservation area. That's what this guy is looking at. There could be a bunch of the brochures. So there's information right when you come into the space. This is that solar shading that comes down. This is the elevator lift that gets you up to the upper floor or down to the lower floor. As you look straight ahead, that's going to be the main reception hub. That's this area here. So you could see it from the entry. You could access it by these main steps that come down, or by the lift if necessary. And that reception will direct you either to who you're meeting on this lower level or who you're meeting on the upper level. And then someone will either come down and meet you, or you'd be sent up the stairs, and there's glass doors up here that then allow you to go in and meet the staff. So this is going to be kind of the central location for reception that deals with visitors. So in this space, you can see this little kid and stuff here. What we've been able to do with the programming is, rather than make a much larger addition that also has a potential exhibition / event evening type of space in it, we've been able to bring that program into the building and provide this exhibition, potentially temporary or permanent exhibition space and event space. And I'll show you in the plan, it's actually quite big. So say in the evening, this can be rented, and we'll show you how you don't have any access to the offices upstairs. And this lower level could all be interconnected and has washrooms and is accessible and could be rented out. This is rotating. This is standing at that lift, now looking back out at the landscape. So this dude here who's on this landing of this stair, that stair then goes up to the upper level, but you see this landing is now at level to that grade that we burned up on the outside. So you have a really kind of intimate relationship with that forest that's to the north. And then the sun's coming in beautifully from the south through the solar shading. And there's even some opportunity for display. Our team found some interesting 3D animation animals, birds that we put in here, but it could be anything. It could be temporary, it could be permanent. This is that view kind of looking at how that stair would work up to that level. And this is that sort of event exhibit space down here with reception. So I did want to show this. Because this is only schematic design, there's the next phase of design development and working drawings and all that jazz before we get to construction. So there's still a long time and work to do to get to sort of final drawings. But we are considering potentially using a second material as an option instead of the stone. And this would be a gray treated cedar. And it has interesting effect that it is vertical, similar to sort of some of these sunshades. We want to include it because in the next phase, we're doing a more detailed budget exercise. So we want to have a few options to see how these things compare financially. So I just wanted to show you the same views, but using a different material. So we're still exploring this from both a cost and a use point of view. But the idea is the same, the shape's the same, the form's the same, and both of them have their own sort of enduring effect. So I think either one would be a good option, and we're going to continue to explore those from a budget and technical aspect. Okay, so jumping into the floor plans, we'll show you blow up ones next because these are quite tiny. But from a high level, I just wanted to show you these colored areas. So the ground floor plan is what I'm calling the lower floor, and the first floor plan is what we're calling kind of the upper floor. And part of that is language, right? Not calling something a basement and main floor. Both floors are equally good, just very different. And there's staff on both floors. So we want to make sure that sort of there's just the naming of them demonstrates that. So public space is this greeny yellow color. So you come in from the vestibule here. This is that entry that had this sort of display and pamphlets. This is the lift and the stairs down. So you have quite a big sort of reception event space here. So you could have loose seatings. You could lose the seatings and have a cocktail party. You could have a museum exhibit on these walls, because that's actually where you have better walls and out here where the windows are. And then you have a reception desk here. The reception desk is going to have one of those retail security things potentially, so that at night that reception could be shut down. Or part of the design in the next phase might be that everything within reception gets locked into the reception desk itself. So in the evening, that could be a surface that could be used for these events, and you don't have to worry about people going through any personal matters. But this is a public space in here. The staff common areas are orange, and then the dual function private public is pink. Dual function on this level is this new huge boardroom, which I see you all sitting in now. This in the existing one. This will be a larger, nicer room, and it has this adjacent meeting room to it that I'll show you in the blow up plans and how this all works. And this gray area is staff area. So there's still a lot of staff desking on this level and in this area here. So you're still surrounded by a lot, but you could see these doors could simply just have locks on them. So at an evening use, you could have potentially this is the new universal accessible washroom. So you have the washroom, coat closet, this event space, the lift, and the door as public space without ever interfering with staff space if it's at off hours. When you go up the stairs of the lift, you had a landing. There's a door here, which is probably going to be fobbed or security controlled, so that when you come into this floor, which is more, it's all staff working, but this open area now is condensed with displays and furniture. So around this fireplace now will be loose collaboration furniture, waiting chairs. So if you come in to have a meeting with someone, you could wait at this area. There's going to be 2 small libraries because there's great books throughout this building right now on all the different subject matter, water and everything. So we thought it'd be great to have some books on display that people could grab. There's some hoteling hot desks here. So this is dealing with some flexibility, both from like interns or students, but also growth as you grow in the future. But this space is public. Staff members could leave their offices or desk areas and come in here and work or have a coffee and sit around under the beautiful skylight. So this is just going to be a much nicer space, which probably was what it was when it was designed originally. It didn't have all that stuff in it. It was a central gathering space in the whole building. So that's going to happen here. And then staff area, which we'll get into more details in the gray. There's staff washrooms, showers, and other uses in here that I'll show you. And then the staff entrances on this other side is here. So I'll jump into the more of the blow up plan. So these are the same plans, just with all the numbers identified on it. And I'll jump into the larger views of these, just probably easier for everyone in there to see. So this is when you come in. So as you can see, there's a large work zone here. We've worked out with Tim and the team where all the staff are sitting and started to work with how the departments work together and IT and all that stuff. So we have a really good sense of that. We're actually further along than we would normally be at this stage, but it was really important to get all the right departments and people and required managers and stuff in. So we've done a lot of work sort of fitting a team into the space. So I could go through in more detail this plan, but you could see there's offices, there's shared offices, there's shared workspace, there's storage, same as over on this side. And this is how you get in down towards the boardroom. So if you arrived at this board meeting you're in the future, you would come in through these doors from the parking lot, down these stairs, and on both sides of reception are open and guide you. You'd see the boardroom behind you, which is on this next page. So this boardroom has a table down the middle, TVs at the end. There's a bench, and I could see some of you sitting on the outside of the table right now. So there's an overflow seating built into there and some cabinets. And there's 2 doors at the front to get in. This area here is a large meeting room. What's interesting about this space is it's going to have like an accordion foldable door so that this can just become part of this boardroom. So in meetings like today, this is loose tables and chairs can be readjusted so that if the meeting gets really big, people could still sit here and see the screen at one end or another, and be part of this larger boardroom. Or this can be closed off, and there's a door here that can be used as a separate meeting room for staff still if there is 2 things happening at once. Or programming for kids in the summer. This is a very flexible space and has this beautiful window. And there's a little sink and coffee area in here too. So this also has washrooms and the lab at this end. As you pop upstairs, again, I kind of described some of this already, but seating, managers' offices, the staff room is at this end, which is in a beautiful location. And then if I popped over to this next one, there's a staff deck area. If you remember, you're in the building right now, that off of this door right now, there's an old landscape stair that's been removed because it was all broken. But we're keeping the sort of patio area there. So there's a little outdoor area. There won't be access from the public here. So when people come to the parking lot, they don't think, oh, do I go to that door or that door? Because there won't be access up to here. There's the offices, there's shared meeting rooms, there's the coat closet. So this is a staff entrance here. So there's a large storage and coat closet as you come in. So all the staff would park at this end and come up to this floor, access this floor, or access from the lower floor that way. But there's also a stair at this end. I'll just pop back up, and a stair at this end. So staff can be going up and down both sides of this plan all the time and don't necessarily have to go out to this main public stair to access the different floors. So that completes, I kind of went through the floor plan a bit fast. So if people have questions, let me know. I'm happy to go back to it. But that sort of completes my presentation on schematic design. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you for the very comprehensive presentation. It looks pretty impressive. I'm sure there are probably questions. Or maybe I'm not. Member Gray.
I'll go first. And I'd just like to say, Luke, that from a distance as a board member and working a little closer with you as a member of the ad hoc committee 3 or 4 times we've had meetings, you appear to be extremely understanding to the needs of the building and the project. And I think we can ascertain that you're extremely good to work with for staff
Thanks.
in terms of the project. My question is, we had some certain requirements when we entered this project. Obviously, accessibility was the first one. There was also discussion about solar glare, solar heating, as well as noise in the upper floor. Can you just speak to how you still consider those
Sure.
into the project this time? I just would hate to lose sight of some of the fundamental requirements we had initially, and your schematics look terrific to me here today. But if you could just touch upon those existing needs, thanks.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you for those nice comments. And yeah, I think the main thing you touched on is noise control. Like right now, everyone comes into the public comes into the space where the staff is working. So there's a bunch of things to break down, where people could access visually plus noise. And there's a lot of disruptions when someone's coming and knocking, saying, "Where am I going for this meeting?" So the whole planning process was actually splitting those 2 issues apart, and that's what we've been able to achieve with this entry. From an actual sound point of view, as you come onto the main upper level staff area, there's offices that are going to be enclosed, and we're doing that by, if you notice on the plan, some of the offices have a bit of particular shape, but it's because we're following the structure of those big beams that are there so that we could have glass that encloses them for sound. So you're going to have the ability to close off office spaces from the main area, but now this main area also isn't where everyone just pops into the space anymore. Now there's actually glass doors that get you to the public stair. So even if there was a bunch of kids in the lobby making a bunch of noise going out to a class or something, you wouldn't hear that in either of the work areas because the lower area is closed off too. From a solar point of view, I mean, we've designed the addition to follow the sun and get as much light as possible. So I think that has been really great. We do want to introduce some solar shading to deal with the direct south light in the upper floor. We're replacing the skylights so that the light and just the quality of those skylights are much better. But now that whole middle of the floor plan is going to be open and filled with light. And because we're putting glass above the offices, all those rooms still get the light coming in from that upper skylight, which is going to be really nice. And then on the lower level, the windows aren't little basement windows. They're from waist high up. So I can see behind you right now, right? Like there's beautiful light that can be in this space. And so we've designed the layout to be more kind of open concept desking. So the groups that are down there are more like groups that are a little bit more open. And that allows that whole lower level space to have glass across it rather than dividing that lower level into a bunch of little closed rooms. So there'll be a lot of large spaces on that lower level, and that allows the natural light to come through and across the space. So I think it'll be a much brighter, nicer space on both floors to work. Does that answer your question?
I think that's great. Thanks, Luke.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Member Shaw, I think, was next.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a very technical question, but the boardroom. Oh, can you not hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, okay. The boardroom above that bench, is that like a solid wall or is that windows?
Solid wall. Yeah.
So,
Here, I
so
can go back.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, let me just go back to it for a sec. So when you come in here, this would be a solid wall so that you don't look, this wall is solid, so you're not looking into that staff area. So the boardroom itself is going to be darker, which is a bit better for displays and stuff as well. There is glass on this meeting room side, and there's glass on this side. But the idea is that the boardroom's a little bit more enclosed.
Okay, so that was going to be my question. Like the big screen that you can see in the room there, like is there potential to have a screen above that bench
Yeah, there
for
is.
visibility and sight lines if you're doing a big event? So that was
Yeah.
my only question.
I think that's a good idea, and I think it'll come down to in the next phase when we're working with electrical engineers and sorting out where you put all the PowerPoints for all the TVs and stuff like that. Comes down to cost as well. Like, do you need 3 large screens? Do you need 1 large screen and 2 TVs, which are secondary screens that are just showing the same thing? So there's a bit of kind of AV design that we still have to sort out for that room. But I agree. It'd be nice if it was on 3 sides, especially for how that meeting room opens up to it as well, and how that extra seating would work. Now, if people are on the bench, you're not seeing the screen that's behind you, so you need the other screens as well. So it's a bit of a, you have to kind of look at it from all ways.
No, otherwise I love the multi-use spaces, and all the light. It looks like it will be a fabulous space. So well done with a challenging footprint to work with.
Great, thank you.
Member Farmer.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll echo that. This looks great for incorporating form and function and all those things that are the thing you do professionally. One question and then one just aesthetic preference. I'm curious, Luke, can you tell us why we maintained the kind of 3-step or 4 steps down from that opening vestibule into the reception area?
Yeah.
I look at that and I think it makes for a both necessary and very short elevator ride for folks who require that. As someone who has no idea the professional considerations that go into this, why maintain that rather than slope the area more considerably?
That's a great question, and we did look at this in 3 different ways. So the parking lot and the landscape is at, say, 0, and so to access the building at that level makes a lot of sense. What's happening now, there's a ramp that goes from the landscape down to that door. That causes water issues. It causes ice, snow, shoveling issues for accessibility in the winter. And so there was the challenge of going down first to the lower level, which we wanted to avoid. And in discussions with the team, that issue of that water all running towards the door was an issue, and also just the slippery slope down as the only accessible entry. The slope that's there now is not fully accessible either, so like the length of that ramp would have to be very long from the parking to get into the building. And as you build the addition out, that ramp gets further and further out, which just compounds the problem. So what we wanted to do is, I agree with you that if you're in need of the use of the lift, that 1 stop down is only 4 or 5 steps. It's not a lot, but the percentage of that lift use down to that lower floor is going to be very low, but this allows for it still to be accessible. And those lifts come with multi-stops, so it's not a technical issue for it to go down a little bit versus a lot. So technically, there's no challenge there. And then the 4 or 5 steps down also allows you to connect to reception in a very easy, smooth way. So if reception was 10 steps down or 10 steps up, we felt that it was just too far from when you enter. Where right now in that view, you can see it's kind of like it's just a couple steps down and you're gradually easily there. Or if you need to take the lift, you do that. So really, to answer your question, it was definitely more of a technical solution where you come in flat at grade. You don't have to deal with any water or snow issues. And then once you're in the building, you're able to move to one floor or the other.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense. Also, just strictly aesthetically for the outside treatment,
Yes.
like the horizontal stone picking up the invocation of the stone base for the vertical sunshades, which make me think of your waterfall picture on the vision board. But that is not
Interesting.
that's just aesthetic. Thanks, folks.
That's interesting. Thank you for that.
Member Maxwell, you had a question? Member Maxwell, we can't hear you if you're, hard to see you a little bit as well. I'm not sure if you're speaking.
Yeah, I think Alex was talking and we weren't hearing anything.
You're muted, Alex. I could go to, okay, I'll go to Member Dubik has a question first, and then we'll come back to Al.
So again, I just wanted to echo Scott's comments. This has been a really great process, and really exciting to see this all come together and the increased functionality of the building. There's a lot to get excited about here. We did have a conversation about, given that we're an environmental organization, about green building standards. So wondering if you can just maybe speak a little bit about how we're thinking about green building standards.
Sure. Yeah, like we had one option we had looked at in terms of, well, overall, the building is designed to kind of very high standards. So there's going to be super high efficient glass on all the new windows. Everything's going to be over insulated, including the new roof. We're insulating the existing building to bring it up to better standards. And then we're changing the air system and adding the new system, high efficiency system for this area. So from a sort of technical standpoint, the building's going to be very efficient. It's not a big space, so we're doing what we can. It is on septic. It is on geothermal. Like the building already hits a lot of really great sustainable parts to it. So by designing sort of passive solar design aspects to the building and allowing, in winter the sun comes in and the floor being stone heats up naturally from that way. Like just the passive solar design that we've done is probably the most sustainable aspect of the project. But then the insulation value, the quality of the windows, and the systems for engineering that will be designed will be high efficiency as well. We had considered, I think, previously a concept of maybe doing a green roof on the building. But the area of the addition is so small in the end that it didn't seem that the cost warranted it. And as you saw from the views, you don't really get a good sort of view of the roof anyways. So if it was even just for kind of show, the green roof doesn't really have a great return for value for that small area. It still has benefits to it in the sense that it soaks up a lot of water and you don't have to dump out water onto the parking lot, right? So green roof would still be good for that. It just seemed like the expense for such a small area wasn't necessarily worth it. And I'll go back to that view for a sec just to show you a couple things with water. So what we're going to do here is, if you see this tiny little black thing here, this is going to be like if you've ever seen those vertical scuppers where water comes out and sometimes there's like a chain, and there's going to be a gravel French drain here that leads the water away from the building. So the water from this addition here comes down onto this one and then down out onto there. So we're dealing with water that way. If there's green roofs potentially on this level, or this or this level, it would help absorb some of that. But at this time, we just didn't see the value for such a small area from a sustainable point of view. Does that help your question?
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Maxwell, have you had any success in joining us? Still can't hear you. You're muted.
We'll try this one again. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we have you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, so well, some of those questions were answered because you couldn't hear me anyway. So I was just going to ask about the green roofing, but I didn't know if there was an opportunity for any kind of an outdoor patio there to for when you're repurposing things. But anyway, may not be possible on a small surface like that.
From a patio on the roof perspective, no, because there's no access to the roof part. But patio out front, certainly there's the opportunity for that. That's where I think that this, like, see how this has happened. So the parking lot's here. And then there's going to be like this forecourt, which is going to be like an arrival space, or you drop your kid off for summer camp, and these benches with a garden in it is where people can hang out and wait for the leaders to come get them. So I think this forecourt would be kind of like a patio space. And then the staff have a patio space that's just for them, that's enclosed or fenced at this end. So there is that patio space there. And from a green roof perspective, I mean, I agree. It is a really nice thing to do. It would help absorb water, which, runoff is always a problem now. So it deals with that. I think cost implications was my biggest concern there. As we move through the next round, it is definitely easy for us to get some additional pricing and potentially show what the option of an upgraded roof to be a green roof would be. If it's financially viable, then great. If not, then that would answer that. But from a technical perspective, it doesn't really change a lot of the design if we did a low maintenance, water absorbing green roof up there. So we could look at that in the next round, still as an option to deal with that. It also helps with uh, like a heat island effect too, right? Your building cools down with the green roof because the sun's not heating up your black roofing. So it does help with that aspect as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking in the spirit of conservation, it kind of, is in that theme. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Comment to that? Yeah. So, thank you. Member, sorry, Tim has a comment.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Just to the comment of the green roof, we had Luke and his team had put a green roof on the original design, but it was a much bigger addition. I think right now we have to think about it in context of what we're trying to achieve here. And when we think about green roofs in an urban situation, yes, it makes sense, right? There's pavement everywhere, there's concrete everywhere, you're putting some green in. We're talking about a small addition on a relatively small building on 200 hectares of natural area. Green roof is nothing but an exhibition piece at this point. So from a costing perspective, not sure that that's where we want to spend more money. And at least that's how we've been moving forward as staff in that perspective.
Perfect sense. Member Day, I think you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I have two actually. One continues on with the green building ideas, and I was just wondering if you could speak to the permeability of the paved surfaces, and if any options have been considered for like eco raster is a solution I've seen used in different places where we increase the permeability of the solid surface, which is still accessible, and the windows being bird friendly, which would both be a question of architecture and the use of the building plan.
Yeah, both are very good questions. The short answer is that we're not there yet in terms of the technical specifications and drawings. So this schematic kind of design lays out the intent, and then the next round of design, we get into the details of how everything, the actual materials and the flooring. But both of those are really good points. The permeability of the forecourt, the forecourt is the most important from a permeability, this area here. So I don't think it should be gravel. Like, I think a hard surface but permeable would be ideal. The challenge with some permeable surfaces is accessibility. So wheelchairs, uneven surfaces, you have to be really clean and careful. But there are some good paving options now, which are they're called something blocks, but they're basically, they allow for the water to seep through and there's still a smooth surface. So something like that could be a really great option for the forecourt. And then for bird protection, I think we're starting to think about that when we've added that solar shading outside of the glass to deal with reflection on the glass. So really that's going to cover most of the glazing system. There are a couple areas here still, I'll show you. So like this area is still full and clear, and then there's a full and clear window here, plus the front doors. But that is something that we'll consider moving forward in the next round is bird protection, but also permeable pavers, I think is a really good option for out in here.
Thank you. And if I may ask a second question, sort of more related to use of the building once it is constructed. I feel like it would be a change in how staff, for at least one person in terms of how staff operates, in terms of who would be at reception. And I don't know when that comes into the conversation, if it does need to come into the conversation. And just checking before we spend money creating a space for events and possible rentals. Are there conventions for conservation authorities or policies that would prevent us from renting of the space? And what kinds of events might be on
Yeah, thank you through you, Mr. Chair. First, I'll start with, I guess, staff that would be out here. So we've, through this process, we've been going back to staff to look at all design changes and stuff and have those discussions. So that's how we ended up with the reception, is where it is now as opposed to being out front. That's one of the ways, is in how we use that space. And to visualize it for the board, it's kind of where the owl is sitting on this table right now, is where that will be. In terms of, are we restricted in, can we rent the space out? No, we're not restricted in doing that. Legislatively, no, we can do that. Thirdly, in terms of what would we rent it for, and is it a big space for that? The rental is not the driving factor here. It's everything else we've thought about in the design, working with Luke and his team, Dwayne, is about functionality for the organization, how we function, how we interact with the public. But one of the things that we had looked at when we had set out our initial terms of reference is we had some sticking points. So, Member Greg mentioned a couple of them early on with his question, but one of them was, do we have the ability to, when people come into the building, be able to get a sense of what we do here? So is there an exhibition or display space? And so that's what the need that's being met here. But also, when we had originally talked about a classroom edition, a much bigger edition than we have now, Luke and Dwayne and the team came back after we said, how do we deal with that from a pricing? Can we make it so we can add it on later? And they came up with this design where it has sort of this open space here that also connects to the boardroom and this other meeting space. So collectively, that's an available option for us, but not a driving force.
Yeah, it does. It's clear that the ad hoc committee itself and the staff are making the connections between how your work happens. The space can be. And it's nice that you have more flexibility than.
Not sure there, Member Carl?
Sorry. I love the design. I think it's great. My question has to do with all those berms around the outside. What kind of challenges does that make for grass cutting and that type of thing? Going up and around and down.
It's not too bad.
It's not a.
No, it's okay. Actually, the one that we just did there is yeah, we can handle those berms.
Not bad for students.
Yeah. I usually have my assistant, but the students can handle it too.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I really like the design, and thanks to the committee. I'm not sure, Scott, you're on it. Who else is on the ad hoc committee?
Oh, I'm on now, but I've been to the meeting.
Well, thanks to the work of the committee. I'm glad to hear that cost, this is the easy process. It's always fun looking at designs. And it's not until you get to having to pay for it that, okay, what do we cut back on? So, I just hope that, this will fall within a budget that is realistic for us, because I certainly like the looks of it, but at the end of the day, everything's got to be paid for. And, there's no question we need an upgrade here, and I'm glad to hear Tim talk about cost considerations. Thanks.
So there's no other questions. The only final thing I would ask is, and again, Luke, I'm not going to put your feet to the fire here because we're only in the design stage, but I have two things. One is, any idea how long that kind of renovation would actually take in the construction phase? Approximately, obviously.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think so much is being touched in here that it is going to take a long time. The lead times on materials aren't as bad as they were a couple of years ago in terms of mechanical units or glazing and stuff like that. But there's still just a sequence of operations to do a piece of construction like this, and insulating the existing walls and changing the upper skylight, like getting those in before you jump into the sort of interior fit outs does take time. At the moment, we're thinking about 8 to 12 months. Dwayne, I don't know if you have a more clear number in your mind, but once we get closer to the time of tender, in the tender documents, once we're way long time away from that, but in the tender documents, we're going to request a schedule from the contractors who would be doing this work. And really, that's going to set the actual timeline. We could make a recommendation of 6 months, but if it's unrealistic, you put a contractor in a bad position and you put you in a bad, unrealistic position. So my guess is going to be closer to 12 months for now, because the addition is new construction and it does take a fair amount of time. But as we get closer to the tender period, we'll have a better sense.
Thank you. So that sort of brings up my second point, is then transitionally, now that I see these plans, what I kind of envisioned originally, this is obviously quite a bit more invasive than I originally thought. So transitionally, what's the plan and the work plan with them? I'm presuming there's not a lot of work going to be able to be done in the building during this process, because it's going to be quite invasive. So what is the plan for that period of time?
So we're actively looking for options on site for staff to work through.
Okay.
We have storage in the barn structure for anything that you don't need to move far. And we'll be trying to reduce the things that we do need to store, so that kind of like when you build a new house, you don't want to take all the junk out of your old house and bring it into your new. So we're hoping to be able to reduce the amount of stuff that we have, and between staff being able to work remotely and finding a new for us for a year, that's the option right now. We have a few leads, but we'll wait until we have something more firm to report.
Right. I see you have your hand up, Alex, so I guess I'll give you one last question here before we move on.
Okay, thank you on that conversation that's around costs. So on the inflationary side, like every time we look at issuing a contract down here, or looking at a project, as soon as we turn around, the costs change. So how are you going to project what the costs are or fix them? Because this is a real problem now,
Yeah.
all and everywhere.
Yeah,
Okay.
that happens. That does happen everywhere now. And costs, it's better. It's leveling out now compared to a couple of years ago, but still. But the plan is there's a third-party cost consultant, a quantity surveyor, who's coming in the next round. Once we move forward with a more detailed design with the engineers, like pick the mechanical system, figure out the electrical panel and if we need to add to it or not. Like once we get into the technical part, we're going to take those drawings and get it costed by a quantity surveyor who knows the area, the market, the time of year that you would build, blah, blah, blah. Like they get really detailed into the costs. And within that costing document, we're going to have a bunch of options. So not just like green roof, but materials for cladding. And so once we get that back, there's certainly going to be some things that are higher, some things that are lower. We'll have to adjust the design to suit, and then we go and we finish the drawings. From the time of that cost consultant and us finishing the drawings will be a few months. So there is possibility for some inflation, but in their cost report, they build in an inflationary percentage depending on how long that time period is. It's that's their profession and they know the numbers down to the day. So we depend on that. So at the time that the tender comes, when you go out for tender, you should be about 5% to what you think you're going to hit. Now, with that, so that's how we're going to control that. And even in the tender at the end, we're still going to have some optional prices. So if the tenders come back high, we could still select a contractor who's either the lowest or the best. And then within their contract, we could say, forget the stone floor. We're doing this porcelain floor because you gave us both prices and we're $50,000 over, so we need to make some adjustments. So even in the tender document, what we've been doing the last 5 years is having a lot of those optional prices so that we could adjust things after. Now, the way that the market is going right now in terms of inflation and material costs, I think you're going to be in a very good position at the time of tender, because right now we're seeing the drop in prices in all the first divisions of work. So that's concrete, shoring, excavation. All those guys are running out of work right now, slowing down. And by the time the bigger trades are slowly electrical, mechanical, those trades are going to start slowing down too now. So I think it'll be in a very good position. Dealing with the location, and in terms of Owen Sound, we dealt with this in Stainer, and it really depends on your contractors who are available at the time of tender and who really want the job. So, in the end, we'll use all these things to try to get the budget to be as close as possible to the budget goal. But the market at the end is going to dictate that, and the only way we can control that market is by having some of these optional prices built into the design.
Thank you for that information. Yeah, costing. Yeah,
Thank you.
that'll be a fun time. So thank you again, Luke, for the presentation. It's really nice to have a visual representation of the vision. It's very very insightful and very helpful to me.
Great.
I think the rest of the board. So
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye, everyone.
All right, moving into the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they wish to pull there to discuss? Seeing none, I would move that in consideration of the consent agenda items listed on the February 28, 2024 agenda, the Great Sauble Conservation Authority Board of Directors receives the following items. 1. Environmental Planning Section 28 permits, January 2024. 2. Administration receipts and expenses, January 2024. 3. Correspondence GSC Foundation connection. 5. Minutes GSC Foundation January 16, 2024. And 6. Recent media article. I will move them second. Member Greg and Member Bay, thank you. All in favor? Terry, thank you. Moving into business items. Orientation, operations, attachments. 9 on your list.
While that's coming up, I did have a fresh pot of coffee brought down from upstairs, so if anybody would like to talk about their coffee. I have
You say we need to be kept awake.
Well,
Perfect.
I'm the operations manager, Morgan Berry. I think we've all met. I'm just going to do a brief we'll get into the weeds a little bit, overview of operations, just to tell you what my department does. To start off, I want to just say that I'm very proud of my department. I have an amazing team, and I think as we move through this, you'll see how well this team works together, how efficient they are, and we'll move forward. So what does operations do? So there's quite a bit. We wear a lot of hats, very many hats. So tasks include building and repairing infrastructure. We know our infrastructure is getting a bit older, so we're constantly doing that. Removal of hazards, implementation of capital projects, new landscaping, snow removal, addressing compliance issues within our properties, overseeing Grey County, the CP Rail Trail, that falls under my department as well. Installation removal of dams, that's what we do as well. Fleet management, we also work with our partners to enhance our properties. And we also manage the ambassador parking program.
So I'm gonna take questions probably on the way here, just to make sure we don't lose track. Sure. Member Mackey.
Morgan, in your hats there was 5 white hats and 5 working hats. Is that an indication of the organizational chart?
Sometimes a lot of different vehicles. So I need one in the tractor, one in the dump truck, and one in the truck. So
Thanks.
great question.
Scott Sharp.
So we'll kind of just get into the weeds a little bit. So lands management, kind of what we do is we manage the day-to-day operations, including maintenance of 30 building facilities, signage, and lands. Some of the stuff that we do there, we'll kind of get in there a little bit. So we do the grass cutting. So you see like the arboretum here. Last time you come in, it looks like a beautiful park. That's thanks to the staff here. And it generally takes a full day to cut the grass here. We have trails back here and whatnot. Not only that, we do the memorial forests and 9 other properties within our watershed, or higher use properties. And that runs from all the way to Christie Beach to Aaron Lake and up to Spirit Rock. So it's quite a large area. Depending on the year, we could be cutting grass once a week at all these properties. So if we got like a year like this past year where it rained really heavy and it'd be really hot, the grass, it's hard to keep up with. Other things we do is we have privies on a bunch of our properties. So we go out, we do garbage out there, we clean the privies and make sure that they're acceptable and open to our guests and functional. Again, that covers that wide area again. And generally people say, well, can you do it at the same time? Last time we can't. Last time we have equipment in the back of the trucks. If we can incorporate it with the grass cutting, we try to be efficient. Then we're not driving all over the watershed twice. We also take care of the on the ground, like pavilion rentals. So if someone in a pavilion on the weekends, my staff go in, make sure it's clean, bathrooms are ready, acceptable for our guests that are coming. We do snow removal in the winter, 7 days a week. Christmas Day, if it snows, we're here plowing. We do enforcement, but I also like to call it education too, because a lot of times it's an educational moment there. When someone's doing something they shouldn't be doing on a property, and lots of times you just get in there and figure out what's going on, and have that human connection, and then you can educate them why. Why do we have dogs? Well, so it's disturbed. Maybe nesting of of the bobo lakes out there. Being respectful just to other park users. So the enforcing part is also part of the education. We'll get into that a little bit later. We oversee the ambassador program on a day-to-day. Lots of things pop up. Could be issues with phones. A staff member is sick off property, so I have to pull one of my maintenance staff in to go do that job at a place like Inglis, where there's a lot of cars, a lot of volume. In a place like Spirit Rock, we can probably get away with it. So just on the day-to-day, that pops up. Execute. So any of the construction that happens on the lands, operations overseas, the execution of that. Maybe the building of the bridge of the falls, new privies, what have you. That all comes through the operations department. Conduct, we do risk management. So we have 177 kilometers of trails. Luckily, Bruce Trail covers a lot of that, but we also have a lot of trails that just fall over solid trails. So that assess, lots of times there's trees or boardwalks that need to be replaced or what have you. We're always consistently looking at hazards, not only for our park users, but also for the staff. And that includes dams too. And then coordinating. So coordinating, we're constantly coordinating. That's a big part of our job. We're coordinating with our partners. We're coordinating with contractors. we're coordinating with the public, and that takes up quite a bit of time. I almost said next slide. Here you can see a few of the pictures here. You can see bottom left here, this is like a situation that we dealt with this year. A big tree fell into one of our neighbors' pools. So we had to go and assess that situation, remove the tree, rebuild some of the fence, and you want to maintain a good partnership with your neighbors. You want to be good neighbors. So it actually did quite a bit of damage to their pool, where they've had to bring in their insurance, and it's going to cost quite a bit. But it's covered under insurance. So this is the types of things that will pop up where we think, hey, we're going to go install signs today, and then, oh no, there's a tree down in someone's pool, or the septic system, you can see there, we got it opened up because it's backed up because roots have gotten in it, or there's a couch lodged into the dam. We have to go and get the couch out. Compliance too. This is another huge part of our job here. You can see graffiti on the nice rocks, and Becca, we miss her dearly. She's down there. We're putting up no ATV signs over at Sucker Creek there. And then you can see we installed that brand new Feversham sign, and the next day it was completely vandalized. Again, with the Clendenin, we put up wayfinding signs, and that was ripped down. They're all thrown into the river. My staff would go out there and deal with that after they've gone out there and put them all in the ground and spent all that time and effort. And it's not just my staff, like Gloria's staff and Becca designed all the signs. So it's you know, it hits everybody, this kind of stuff. We deal with garbage quite a bit. And then you can kind of see in the bottom right there where that little pop-up thing, that's an encampment. That's something that we deal with quite a bit too. And those are interesting situations. They're not just like a one-stop shop kind of thing. This one actually had a wood-burning stove in it. And these guys have been there for a long time. And when you're dealing with this type of situation, not only dealing with people, but also there's mental health. Usually there's a diagnosis, there's drugs and that type of thing. So it's a really sensitive situation. That bottom one though on the right, it took my staff and I about 2 weeks to get that spot cleaned up properly and back to how it was.
League member Mackey had a question?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Morgan, have we looked at any portable camera systems to try and combat some of the vandalism that's being done?
We've looked at maybe trail cams and whatnot. Then it gets into some liability stuff. You have to have the right signage for it, and then someone's got to have the time to view it, and so it's something that we're always going back and forth on. We've reached out to other CAs to see if it's been successful or not. So it's definitely something that is not off the table, and something that we definitely look for. But there's so much property, and there's so many issues. It can be from tree stands, permanent tree stands, to ATVers up in Sucker Creek or Mud Lake. So if we had a program like that, and we really wanted to get serious, it would have to come from somewhere.
There's portable ones available. So if you had, areas that were being damaged more than others, and you wanted to maybe have a closer look at it, there are systems out there that are relatively cheap.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and it's definitely something we're definitely have a very open mind to, especially as we move forward.
If I might, thank you, by the way. That's a lot of the things of the conservation public interaction. Can you talk a little bit more about the encampment? I've also helped clean the encampments near the school, but people had left, so it's easier just to what was left.
Yeah.
Do you work with outside agencies to help connect people to alternative housing?
Yeah, we do. So the OPP have a 2-on-1 program where we will put people up for a night. They don't we've had the OPP, for instance, like the gentlemen that were there. We finally got them out of that one spot, and then they moved down the other way, started to do it again, and we brought the OPP in, and most people are like, let's charge them, let's do this, but they don't have any money. You know what I mean? So the police are actually, the OPP that we've been dealing with have been very open-minded. And so they actually have this program where they put these guys up, give them some money, get them fed, and then the Grey County has some great programs that are starting to come together now. There are safe and sound and own sound, and so my staff have been trained on sort of how to deal with this. They don't never to go in on their own. It's going in with a bit of a team to make sure that they're safe. Because lots of times they can be you don't know what you're dealing with. You really don't. And I've dealt with it. I've worked with the authorities since 2015. Probably gone into 5 or 6 different cabinets. And some of them can get volatile. And so you want to make sure that you're safe and your staff is safe. And so if there's any of those types of situations, we'll bring the OPP as well. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
Okay.
So coincidentally, we actually, council, we just had the first our annual report by the OPP, and they talked about that program and how they've implemented, which is really good because they will go out with you to cases particularly where it's probably mental issues that are involved. So my question is, did you kind of approach this first without them to see whether you could do something? Or was it a direct call to them first and let's go in together because they obviously have more power to deal with this kind of thing and might be safer for staff not to have to worry about that initial confrontation aspect?
Yeah, it depends. So we did bring the OPP in just to make sure. And if it's like if there's ever a feeling of being unsafe, then yes, we will bring the OPP in. Sometimes it's tense with teenagers. So, do you know what I mean? And that's a situation that you feel comfortable going in. My background before here was in mental health, and same with my second. He's got 30 years in mental health and addiction stuff. So we've got a good sense of that, and then we can pass that to our staff as well. But yeah, it's a case by case for sure. Again, the biggest compliance issue we have is dog off leash. And thought that would just be fun to look at.
Where'd you get your pro?
So yeah, we deal with that quite a bit. It's funny because that's probably where my staff get the most abuse. So that's just an interesting. I think over there. So we talked a little bit about capital projects and capital projects on this. You can see here, kind of the darker area. That's the new bridge that was built at Inglis. So that fell onto our desk. And sometimes when we are doing cost analysis, it's going to cost us this, and then like COVID hits and pulls on a hole. So we always try to keep up with it. Yeah, so we had to come up with some cost saving initiatives here. I was able to reach out to the 32 Combat Engineer Regiment, and they were able to work it into their program. It was a training exercise, so that cut our costs over in half with them coming and building. It was a great exercise. So we're always looking for cost saving ways to run our program. And you can see again the privy there. We actually built that during COVID, but we had it built by the Mennonites because it cost less for them to build the whole thing and get it there than it did for us to even just buy the material to fit the roof. But you can see that we built like the ventilation staff, and we put the ventilation up top there. We put all the vinyl walls and the toilet and the accessible bars to make it up to what we wanted it to be. But other notable ones are the entrance signs. I don't know if you've noticed, but they're all the entrance signs at properties. We're working through the less known obscure ones. I think they look amazing. Wayfinding signs, we have gatehouses. We did the stone reporting this year at Spear Rock. So yeah, this also takes up quite a bit of time in operations to implement and to get in there, and lots of times we're getting our hands dirty. Dams. So yeah, we're responsible for the installation and the removal of dams. we have to make sure that all the related tools are in good working form. We use specialized tools, hoists and lifts, and specialized equipment to get the logs in and out. We have to remove debris to make sure that the dams are operational, and build the stop logs as well. So we just recently got some funding, and we're rebuilding all the logs for this dam actually. So I just wanted to run through just sort of like how we have to kind of think on our feet here. You see that big tree in there. We're thinking, how are we going to get this out? So we have to get the logs out to let the water pass. There's no playbook for this. There's nowhere to turn to figure this stuff out. So we got to figure it out. We're going to kind of figure it out on the fly. I can't just leave something like that in there for a couple of years. Like, you got to figure it out. So what we figured is down the far right section, we open up the logs there. There's not a bunch of water flowing over there. We get in there with a boat and get it out with a crane. So this is myself in the front there. And we kind of made some tools so we could get a choker around the logs. And my main guy there at the back, keeping the boat steady. And you can't see John. John Biddle sort of there with a rope too, making sure that we're staying stationary there. And we get out of the way and we get this thing out. So that's just kind of the things that we're doing on I want to say a day-to-day basis, this type of thing, but these types of things come across all the time. And we have to find solutions in a cost-effective way.
Oh, we don't know who the insurance.
That's a good story. My department's also responsible for overseeing the Grey County Rail Trail. We do all sorts of things here too. You can see a bench that we installed here over at Wilcox Lake. We just project managed over about a 3-year time, $1 million project, basically from Markdale to Dundalk, just past Dundalk. Those types of projects always have problems and whatnot, and working them through and whatnot, but I'm proud to say that one is completed last year. It looks great. And now we're looking back at how we're going to take the rest of the trail that we have, 77 kilometers of trail to do. So we're always out there removing trees, doing repairs on the actual surface, and installing signs and gates and all sorts of stuff. We also look over the parking ambassador program. So when I stepped into the role, Tim and I kind of sat down and looked at, okay, well, what are we doing here? We were hiring students, and we just had a couple of other properties just to take money, and that's all they were doing. And we're like, well, let's make this program a bit better. Let's expand it. And so let's, instead of having just someone there to take money, let's have an ambassador, someone that hikes the trails. They know the trails. They know the history of the place. So part of the orientation is that they have to read the back history of the area, and also like the surrounding area. Where's a good place to eat? Oh, is this place full? Where can you go next? Graves Museum's over here if you're down in English Falls. So the role kind of has expanded. And what we've been able to do with that is build a bit of a culture. So we've been able to, it's a seasonal position. So we've been able to keep a good turnover of people to keep coming back because it keeps the job more interesting. Since the inception of the program, we've grown in terms of revenues 250%. So that's a big number. I feel like if I was on Dragon's Den right now, Mr. Wonderful would ask me to join his team. I mean, and this program is not just run by the operations department. Like Valerie, she does all the season pass. Gloria and her team, they do the design and get the word out and the marketing. So it's not just an operations thing. It's a big conglomerate of Sauble that does. My department is also responsible for fleet and equipment management. We have 12 vehicles. We're responsible for the purchase of the vehicles, also the retirement of the vehicles. But that also includes all of our equipment. So everything from our hedge trimmers to our chainsaws to our tractor, dump truck, our wood chipper, we're always constantly doing maintenance on our equipment and trying to do the preventative maintenance so it doesn't come in cost down the line. So yeah, please, that takes up a bit of time. Other responsibilities, we do the snow survey in the winter, we go out 2 times a month to make sure that we get the right readings so John can do his analysis. We respond to complaints consistently. I get lots of emails and lots of phone calls, and I really like dealing with that. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love to call. I'll do an email, but I'll try to get them on the phone because usually someone's saying something, but they're actually meaning another thing, and you can't really tell them in an email. When you get on the phone, you really can get to the root of the problem. And sometimes they're completely right. You're like, oh yeah, that is not acceptable. Yeah, we need to go look at that. And that's okay. Operational reviews. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair, and sorry I had to step out. And you didn't jump over, but I missed the slide. You had the Grey County Rail Trail.
Yes.
Just a question as far as the budget that is provided by Grey County.
Yes.
And whether that is sufficient to keep the trail standards up in your mind.
Well,
I know it's looked at every year, and
yeah, it's different every year, so it depends on the focus. So, like I was mentioning before, the last 3 years there's about $1 million invested into that one section there, which we did complete. So yeah, that was a necessary budget. And now we're looking at, okay, you've got your investment here, and we've got all the stone dust in here. Now we need to get on a grading and a schedule to keep it there, and then we're not doing these big projects. So we're getting into the preventive maintenance, and I think that's just something that we're working on with them. I think in terms of budget, it depends on the year. It really does.
Morgan, roughly how many staff hours are dedicated towards the Grey County Trail?
That's a good question in terms of hours. I can tell you in terms of cost, but let me see if I can break it down ahead.
It's okay. I mean,
yeah, no, it's a good
trying to
question.
get a sense for whether it's sustainable, where we're at right now, or whether it's something that there's 3 of us here that sit in county council just to have some idea. And I know you work with Scott and Randy up there. So.
Yeah, it's difficult in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways we're getting close to getting that trail to where it needs to be. And in terms of like where the budget is, the number of staff hours there, it's quite a bit of staff hours that go there, and things pop up in the Grey County all the time. Like, neighbors will have issues with fencing, or there's trees down on trails, and so we're constantly readjusting. I have some ideas. I haven't got too far into them.
But I just think it's a really good relationship that we've got between Sauble and the county right now. And I think, I just want to see it continue to work in both parties' best interests.
Yeah, no, I agree. So the things we do is support the management plans. So most times we'll back out, talk through things, and is this going to work? This doesn't work. The strategic plan, that's kind of a big thing that's been happening. It does take some time, but my department, and I think it's very valuable for this organization, you can see that it's already pulling the staff together in a positive way. So I think that's great culturally. And then board reports, take up some time. Let's do that. Just like other neat things we do, like we heat our shop with firewood, so we'll spend like a few days where we're cutting.
Just before you carry on, I think Member Maxwell had a question.
Well, actually, I was second in the queue there.
Sorry, Member Farmer, I didn't see your hand. Your hand's hard to see in that little corner up there, but
it's only small because I'm so far away from you. Just a question, and this might be more of a county question, but in that, looking at how on so many properties we try to limit ATV use, and the GSA is managing the the rail trail where ATV use is a permitted activity, and yet I'm just curious, to what extent is the maintenance requirement on the trail increased by the use of ATVs on it? And is that proportional to, yeah, I guess like the risk reward value destruction kind of whatever that equation is. I'm wondering if Morgan could just speak to how the maintenance is impacted by ATVs.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good question. ATVs definitely do have an effect on the trail. Maybe not so much in the straightaways, but on curves and bends and whatnot, they'll start to like build ruts, and that can also collect water, and then also there can be water issues. And a lot of times when the aprons meet the roads, that's a time where maybe a little bit too heavy on the gas, and that can be burnout areas, and we have to address those. We are working with the Dufferin Bray ATV Club, and they're a great club. And they are looking at ways that they can help address those issues. And that's coming in the form of some funding, looking at possible. They might have equipment to do some of the grading and what have you. So we're looking at, how their use of the trail is affecting it and what they can come to the table with.
Really, okay, member Mackey first.
Thank you, Chair Hubert. And just through you to Member Farmer, it's been presented at County Council, as Morgan has alluded to, that the Dufferin Bray ATV Club is the only club that financially contributes towards the rail trail. So there isn't any biking clubs or walking clubs or skiing clubs that are actually making a financial contribution. So I don't know where it all evens out, but we were made aware that there is a financial contribution from it.
Member Maxwell, your question now?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I actually have one and then a follow-up question. The first question is a quick one, I guess, to answer. Does your department manage the fish ladders that are, or fishways that are within the conservation dams?
That is generally the M&R.
Okay, so here's my follow-up question then too. So in this world of downloading that seems to be going on, has the M&R or the Ontario Hydro expressed any interest in a delegated authority to the conservation authorities to start managing their dams at all?
Not to my knowledge. That would be a really good question for John Bidorf, but it hasn't come on my radar at all.
Okay, thank you.
So now I'd like to introduce you to my staff. This is my full core staff here. There's 2 full-time staff. There's myself and Lloyd Nickel, who's bottom left here. And then I have 2 contract staff, and that is Spencer to the right of Lloyd there at the bottom. And we have a 10-month contract, and that's Jade Stenard. That's my full team that takes care of those items, plus more. I could bore you with more things that we do, but I won't. We do have 2 seasonal staff that come and join us in the summer that are students, and as well as 7 other positions at the gatehouses. So the students that work with us, they'll help us with the grass cutting. You can see we pulled out a log at the mill dam, or chopping up firewood so we can keep warm in the winter here. So that's what we have to work with. So I think it's a testament to the team on what we do and what we cover. I also, my last slide here, have to talk about our partnerships and the ones that we work closely with. So you see the Friends of Haibu there. There's Bob and I giving each other a little hug. Vegas Falls Arboretum Alliance, Bruce Trail Conservancy, the OPP, Duff and Gray TV Club, Valley Counties, Townships and Cities, the 32 Combat and Engineer Regiment, Alpinist Club, and then we're always looking to build that. So we've recently started to work with the Escarpment Biosphere Conservancy. We did a little project recently at Turner Hollow to redirect the trail, and we're looking at what we can do to move forward with that property and also coming into a partnership with them. So we're always looking for more partners because they really do get in there and help us take care of all of our properties, and a lot of them are very passionate about it. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mark. It was very comprehensive. It was good. That was a lot of information. It was very helpful. Does anyone have any questions?
No, I just, thanks to Morgan and his crew. I mean, all of our sites that I've ever visited are always, seem to be in tip-top shape for the resources that you're given to look after them. So very much appreciated.
Yeah, our philosophy is if you make it nice, it's less likely to get taken advantage of.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Recommend maybe just taking a 5-minute break for everybody to just stretch your legs a little bit. And I know, Scott, you have to go, so it's a good opportunity to take a quick break.
There was members of council wanting to cancel from the weather, but there ain't no matter said no. Plans to look them up. I better get there and be there.
Morgan, yeah, if I told you they had to be there.
Everybody.
You better make sure you're there.
Morgan, do you have a concert at the Roxy on Friday night?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if everyone knows.
I was trying to get my ticket for it online today and it wouldn't let me finish the process. So,
No. Yeah. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
was there another plug in there?
Oh, yeah.
Way over there. I see it. That's okay.
Too stubborn.
I was hoping I'd get all the way through. I don't know that I am.
So what I'll do is I'll.
Well, it's interesting.
This one closer to you.
You think I'm good?
Had nice
There we go.
Or, no, you were there. I remember now.
I'm trying to think of what I did in the weekend. Coldest night of the year. Yes. I thought that was really good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and my daughter and son-in-law with me as well.
Right here.
No, I just.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna go. Yeah.
Yes.
Right back right now. We got the water more. Oh, yeah.
And I think. Yeah, it's bad.
Actually, I have no idea. It's very close.
Cheesecake versus not saying.
So I don't have it.
Yeah.
But again, it's so way up front, like,
But it's the way I make it. It's very about that. So it's about not overrating. And more bacon is very thicker.
That's only an hour further north of us.
Yeah.
All these ideas and considerations.
Have you got anything for construction, capital projects in here?
Internally in town, there are very much, every major one, Trowbridge Street.
Could there be a relationship?
We just had Alpha Street, that came in at 5.1 million last week. We budgeted 9. Even with contingency, likely around 6. And now we're back with a microscope going through the documents. Discrepancy, because we had 5.1, 5.2, and 5.9 were 3 things. And then one today, we just had our river precinct phase come in at about 50% less than the budget too. Came in at 1.7 million. We budgeted 2. As long as it doesn't get blown somewhere else.
It's a vacuum, so there's a power. Interestingly, we were finally doing bridges 21, 22, one side. That's literally talking about the years. And years ago, budgeted $2 million, was probably gonna be at that point. We just got considered for that, it's gonna be a $1 million. So once again, like, over 3 years, and that's gonna, go way up and that's literally how it goes.
Sometimes, yeah. We had counselors a couple of years ago wanted to spend $2.8 million. They've been throwing their hands up in the air, get it done, it will only get more expensive. No, wait. What's that?
I'm one person.
Working on it.
I need to reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, as soon as Valerie gets back, we can be.
I think if this chair is more comfortable.
You think
That one is sloped like this, so I feel like I'm sort of half falling out of it.
We may have 1 or 2, have your board members in the past that may have said this.
That's designed to keep you awake.
Well, I had to drop the heights down because my knees wouldn't take it. So this one is better.
This is the meeting and a work.
Yeah, and then somebody goes down like that in their knees. I had both replaced last year, so one don't go that far.
Yeah, I can do that. Getting back up.
Yeah. I'm just happy when Ben that.
She was on.
Yes, on my.
Alex is back, just waiting for John. But, okay, let's, there he is, perfect timing, John. We're going to reconvene now and carry on. Heading into business items, point two, administration. And the administration center renovation resolution reads, whereas the GSCA Board of Directors passed resolution FA-18-094 at the October 24, 2018 full authority meeting, directing staff to issue an RFP to engage an architect for concept design drawing. And whereas, I hope I'm saying this right, Bell and Bouillet were awarded the contract for concept design drawings at the May 25th, 2022 Board of Directors meeting. And whereas the GSCA Board of Directors has directed staff to obtain cost estimates to proceed with detailed design drawings for the Steam 1 renovation and addition option. And whereas the GSCA Board of Directors direct staff to engage Sauble and Bouillet architects to continue with schematic and detailed design drawings based on Scheme 1 renovation and addition option. That the GSCA Board of Directors accept the schematic design drawings as completion of the schematic design of the admin building renovation project and to proceed to the detailed design phase. I have a mover and a seconder, please. For Carlton, member Gray. Discussion. Really, feel free.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to keep this pretty short because everything that I was going to go over, basically, I think Tim kind of covered when we were going over it, and the architect covered during the presentation. But similar to most of what the board members have said, we're very happy with the layout. Really feel that they listened, and every time that they came back with something, that it was generally addressing what we had in this last set. Definitely, the 3D rendering that they have really helps to see what the building's going to look like. The main things for us: accessibility, having the lift there certainly checks that one off. Coming in flush, noise, being able to close off the staff areas. That's a major one, obviously, as mentioned. We really feel that this plan does that very nicely. Consideration of that front access, we had quite a bit of discussion about that. How are we going to use it? What's the best way? Where do we want the desk out at the front? In a little bit. We really like the layout that we come back with. It's lots of potential for us to be using that space. The boardroom will flow through, and that is going to work nicely. Yeah, separated from the staff areas. And one of the biggest things that we touched on at the beginning, but having the access, the main entrance being at the back of the building now, essentially. Now, where we already have most of the parking, where we have the main access to our trails, I think it's going to flow out nicely, much nicer than it is now, with visitors coming in and being able to see that. And within, we have enough room for future expansion. So, very pleased. Just one thing I'll add based on some of the discussion previously, but because we have such a large property and we don't really have a drainage issue. I mean, you might see a little bit of ponding in a few spots out there right now. Absolutely, so it's got a bunch of rain. But from my perspective, doing drainage engineering, I would not want to put money into even beyond this permeable pavers. Things like that. Those are great in areas where you're making the entire site impervious. Whereas this, we can just send it off to the grass and it's doing the exact same thing as it would be if we're going to spend more money to put in gravel and that for those. So, the French drains that we're planning on putting in are going to be perfect for it. But we haven't really got to that point. But we're So yeah, at this point, what we're basically asking is to move forward from the schematic design, accept these drawings for that, move forward to that detailed design phase, which we're all extremely excited about. Finally get into some of those details that they keep telling us we're not there yet. And mechanical and electrical engineering will start with that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question. I noticed on one of the drawings that there will be a driveway that will come around that way. Is that being planned just somewhere in the future or fairly soon to direct people around to this end of the building?
If that was on the architect drawing, was it?
Yeah, it was on one of the drawings. I saw that that driveway, instead of curling around, would come around that way.
It's something that I personally would really like to see from the site flow perspective, that we can have visitors coming in straight through and having staff turn off. It would also give the potential of even closing off some of the connections to the back. Then there's no discrepancy, staff, public, and that. I believe, as much as I would love to see it, absolutely, as part of this, it'll come down to a cost thing. That'll be one of those items that when we're looking at the site costs, what would it cost to put that in? And, if we're anywhere at the high end of our budget, it would be one of those things that would get pushed down the line, I would expect. But I would absolutely love to see it go now as part of this, but it's going to be one of those items.
Follow up then. Could it be worked in as part of a construction access so that you're not coming in around that end, but coming in this way?
Well, it may be something that gets used as a construction access. Build it as a gravel lane for now. Use that as the area that we're getting to here. It could potentially. There isn't really a lot of site work that's required in this, short of from the asphalt to where the building is and around the building. So we're lucky in that sense because that roof really does cost down. That's really the only area that has site work. We already removed the stairs that were troublesome at the back, which was just nice to have that settled. And we don't want to get into the general contractor having to deal with that on the other side of the building, all those things. We just wanted to get that area cleaned up, and then it would just be the deck area there. So it's not a lot of site work, but yes, that
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your technical expertise in sustainability and services. That is not an area in which I know some of it here, but definitely don't know that. So thank you for that. What I do know a little bit more about is the challenge of keeping a cemetery quiet next to, in my case, a wedding reception. It is noted as a rare situation in which the board has an 80% required indoor space and the divider could be closed, but I just wanted to acknowledge that should that rare situation occur, it probably wouldn't be great for us or the children or the summer camp leaders. So I don't know if they have any further thoughts.
Yeah, we understand. But right now, what happens is we have the potential conflict, which leads to a real conflict because we have to be mindful of that potential. So right now, the kids in this room with us, which would be obviously very disruptive. So what it does for us is there is that divider. It gives us the opportunity to say if there's inclement weather and they absolutely have to come inside, even if it's just for an hour, we can do that. We can house them, get them out of the elements, bring them inside to a safe space, and still carry on business. Is it ideal? No. But is it safe for everybody and still functional?
Thanks for the context about what type of weather required.
Thank you. Member Maxwell, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. And thank you, Chair. What struck me was the absolute professionalism of the architect and also the cost management controls that they're going to be putting in place. Those are the two things that strike me most, and therefore I'm supportive of the initiative. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone, Member Graham?
Just haven't moved the motion. I just would like to support the process that we have undertaken to this point. Cost consideration, I'm going to kind of speak on behalf of Member Mackey, who's not here. Cost consideration has been something that has been front and center since we started this undertaking. And there are some items, this is an easy point where, you know, we could grow the wish list as big as we want to. There are items that you just need as contingencies or not contingencies, extras. They can be considerations down the road. The driveway is a perfect example. You know, we talked about permeable pavers out here, but then we talk about a new roadway across Mother Nature out there. So we just have to be mindful that when we're undertaking the job, there isn't going to be staff on site. It's the staff will be elsewhere. So there are some nice to haves, and I like the process, how we've guided it to this point where nice to have may just remain in the tender documents, and they'll be evaluated at the proper time. See where we land.
Having gone through, you know, bigger projects, it's definitely, you really want to get to that point when you get the first detailed design far enough that you can finally get the cost consultant to give you something. And then you start to see where are we at, because I can't predict, you can't predict where things are at now. That's what that expert's. So as he said, once we can get to that point, that's why we're excited to move on to detailed design. We feel we've done, you know, a great job of getting these plans, you know, very close. There will be some minor changes. There will, and we want to have more discussion with our staff about them. But it's really nice to get, like I say, moving on to that point where we can get something from the cost consultant and we have an idea where we stand.
If I can add one final question to the mix. Probably should have asked the architect earlier, but just as an overall, did a really good job of tying in the landscape, the natural element, all of that. I'm curious whether there was any thought given to the Indigenous recognition of a way to tie that into somehow. And again, that may be more of an interior design after the fact, presumably, but in design stages as well, there may be a nod to some about that relationship somehow that's incorporated in. So I don't know whether that was addressed as part of the design plans overall as well.
Will that be more something that we would be having from our messaging and things that we're presenting there? Is that maybe more or
potentially? I'm just thinking that again. So again, to remember Greg's comment, you have a wish list now, and when you're doing the design phase, like you said, taking in the elements of the landscape and the natural effects. And I'm not even saying that I have the expertise to say what an Indigenous tie-in would be from a design perspective, because even that, you know, that we even have the sweat lodge out here, things like that we incorporate in. It just would seem to be a very natural tie-in for a GSCA renovation building to somehow tie that component in. So I don't know whether that's been thought about the process with the architects, but it's something that, you know, could be considered in moving forward.
It's something we can certainly look at. I want to make sure we're not being tokenistic with anything.
Correct.
And whether we have time to build that relationship to the point where we could, but we can certainly.
Okay. Thank you, Ian. There's nothing else on that. Actually, we have moved to secondary. Can we, we have a vote to accept that motion, please. Thank you. Carry. On to administration point B. As the GSC 2025-2035 strategic plan goals resolution, attachment number 11 in your package, and it reads, whereas the GSCA Board of Directors approved the 2019 to 2023 GSCA strategic plan at the May 23rd, 2018 meeting of the Board of Directors, and whereas we received the final strategic plan report at the August 2023 meeting of the Board of Directors, and whereas the board has been presented with the proposed draft 2025 to 2035 strategic plan goals on multiple occasions, that the GSCA Board of Directors approved the following 5 strategic plan goals for the 2025 to 2035 strategic plan. They include effectively monitor and manage the risk of natural hazards, enhance GSCA land management, achieve organizational excellence, improve watershed health, and strengthen environmental education and communication. May I have a mover and second, please?
What is that?
Carver and Member Shaw. Discussion on, Tim, would you like to address this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'll speak to this. So this shouldn't be a new item for the board. We've brought it forward in a couple different forms, a couple different times. So as noted in the motion, and as you're already aware, the previous strat plan wrapped up last year. Last summer, we presented a final report to you, a bit premature at the actual end of the year, obviously, but we wanted to show that we were wrapping those up and well on our way to achieving those. The premise for the previous strategic plan was that there were 5 primary pillars of the plan, and those were better monitor and manage flood risk, enhance GSA land management, natural heritage preservation, support development of watershed plans of municipalities, improve water quality, and strengthen environmental education and communication. Each of these goals was respectively supported by directions, subdirections, and actions. And those actions being, as it suggests, actionable things that we could actually measure and set metrics to, so that we can say, if we're achieving these, then by default we're achieving our directions, and therefore we're achieving our goals. So yes, we were successful in that. We want to move forward with the same type of process this time, but we want to change the goals a little bit, but generally keep them the same. Now, it's a little unusual with the strategic plan to come in goals first and then go to consultation, but we have gone through consultation. We have developed these goals through that consultation. We feel that they really do meet the mandate of the Conservation Authority in an overarching way. And so I say that with the exception of noting that the goal that we had of support development of watershed plans with municipalities did not work out well. It's not something that we have full control over, for one, which is that doesn't make it a great strategic goal. But the other thing is that it doesn't necessarily need to stand on its own. It can be fit into the other goals in bits and pieces. So we're looking to extract that one from the list and add an inward-looking goal that is the Achieve Organizational Excellence goal, which, as we've started to dig into this with staff and talk to the board and our ad hoc strat planning committee, this is a big, big goal. But it's really important for the organization, and I think it's going to have lasting benefits for the organization as well. So what we've landed on is some slightly rewording of the existing goals, as well as changing out that one. So better monitor and manage flood risks has become effectively monitor and manage the risks of natural hazards, to both capture the fact that we don't always have to be better. We are doing a good job, but we want to continue to do that effectively. And flooding is not the only natural hazard that we look after. There are other natural hazards that we need to consider as well as part of our mandate, so we've broadened that goal. Enhance land management and natural heritage preservation has been shortened to enhance GSA land management. This is to be reflective of the changes from Bill 23, where we are a lot more scoped in what we do in terms of natural heritage preservation, and it is really largely scoped to Grey Sauble lands, as well as the stewardship work we do, but that is captured under Achieve Organizational Excellence, as I've mentioned. Improve water quality is being reworded to improve watershed health, because again, by having a healthy watershed, one of the defaults or the outputs of that is good water quality. But then you get all the other benefits of a healthy watershed. And finally, strengthen environmental education and communications. That goal stays the exact same. So we did bring these forward to the steering committee of the strategic plan steering committee. They were unanimously supported at that forum. And the reason we want to set these goals prior to going out to public consultation is so that we can scope the expectation from stakeholders, from partners, from the public. There's no point in us getting a broad swath of things if we can't take action on them. So what we want to do is set that expectation and get meaningful consultation within the framework of the work that we actually do as a conservation authority. So with that, through you, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we would love the board's support in setting these 5 goals in stone so that we can continue to move forward with the strategic process. Discussion? Excellent. See no questions, so that I would ask for a vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Administration point C, the 2024 GSE work plan resolution, which is attachment 12 in your package. Whereas the general membership of the authority has approved a strategic plan for the operations of the authority, and whereas the chief administrative officer of the authority is responsible for developing short and long-term goals of the authority to support the strategic plan, that the Great Sauble Conservation Authority Board of Directors accept and approve the 2024 priority work plan as presented. And then mover and second. Member Gregg and Member Farmer. Thank you. Tim, I believe you'll be addressing this as well. I will. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you've been presented with the proposed 2024 priority work plan for the organization within the board package. I'm not proposing to go through each item here. What we try to capture in the work plan every year is some of the ongoing work that the different departments in the organization do, so that those aren't lost on the board, so you understand that those are ongoing in addition to everything else. But then we also want to put in the big ticket items that we're trying to work on as well. This plan does not reflect the entirety of the work plan of the organization. Each department has its own work plan that has more detailed to-dos, as it were. And from those, we pull out what we would like to put into this plan that we're saying, we're going to strive for all the things in the departmental work plan, but we're going to say to the board that we are committing to trying to accomplish these things that we're proud of the work. One thing that I would note is this year has a lot of big goals for us. Some of those are being driven by the Conservation Authorities Act, such as a watershed-based resource management strategy, conservation land strategy, conservation inventory, ice management plan, and natural hazard infrastructure asset. So right off the top, those are a lot of very large documents to finish up in 1 year. On top of that, we have our strategic plan and the office renovation that you've already heard today. So those items that I just spoke to are the big things that as a team, we have to accomplish this year. The work plan sets those out as well as some other things. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about this, but thank you for that, actually. Any discussion? That's out.
My apologies. Just a comment. I think the plan is excellent, but tying it back to the strategic plan, I just noticed that in here it reads better monitor and manage flood risks, and then still has the natural heritage preservation. So if that's kind of the outward facing document that people are going to see, I think we need to change or make sure that wording gets changed to reflect how we've changed the strategic plan.
And then we can certainly do that. So what we were operating on developing this is that we're actually between 2 strategic plans, right?
Yeah.
And so we were working with the wording that we already have. No problem to change it.
Yeah, it may seem like a minor thing, but if somebody from the public is reading it, then they take it back to being the old strategic plan and not seeing it tied to the new. So, thank you.
Anything else? If not, then we'll call a vote to accept the order and presented. All in favor? Thank you. Point D, the 2023 Q4 budget reserves update, attachment 13 in your package. Whereas the Board of Directors approved the GSEA 2023 operating and capital budget on February 22nd, 2023 by motion FA-23-017, and whereas the 2023 year-end actual deviate from that approved the budget, that the Board of Directors approve any previously unapproved transfers of funds to or from reserves or surplus as detailed in Report 005-2024. and that the board of directors approve the creation of a stewardship reserve to clearly manage year-over-year funding of stewardship, grant funding, and projects. Again, I have a mover and a second. Member Dubik and Member Carlton. And discussion, and Tim will speak to this as well, and Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as noted, there have been a few unexpected changes through the year. It's funny, it's unexpected because you don't know what they're going to be, but they're not unexpected because there's always things that change as soon as you set the budget. We did have some discrepancies in planning costs, staffing costs within planning. We didn't hire our engineering professional until about halfway through the year, so there were some savings there. We also had a little bit of turnover within our planning department throughout the year. As the board is already aware, one of those positions we did not backfill to help to manage scheduled deficit within the budget. So the reason that we had what I'm saying a scheduled deficit is we had targeted a certain amount of revenue for planning based on a new funding model that we had set up based on work that we had done by Watson and Associates. We didn't realize the revenues from that new funding model for a variety of reasons, predominantly turn in the market, slow down in the market, and we just didn't see the same number of applications coming in. Some other things affected too. So the loss of doing natural heritage reduced the number of applications. Bill 23 made it so we weren't commenting on North Bruce Peninsula anymore, so that's a variety of factors that add up. So we did see a loss there compared to what we had budgeted. The primary issue with this is that the other change to this new funding or budgeting model was that we actually pulled revenue into supporting departments, so admin, GIS, and comms, and we output staff time from those departments into planning. So there was a lot more integration between the departments in terms of the funding model. So when it doesn't come to fruition, it has a larger impact on the whole budget. That being said, we were able to manage that within the broader budget and to balance it at the end of the day. Now it's balanced on paper, it's surplus in reality. So what we did do is we have certain departments that when they run a surplus, we want to capture that surplus and capture it as reserves. So our education department, when they run a surplus, that's a category 3 non-levy funded program, we want to capture that and put it in the youth reserve for years that may not see a surplus, and so we can balance that out without that levy funding supporting. Our lands program, we've been doing very, very well with our parking program. We've, as you probably recognize from the budget, when the parking program really started to take off, we actually reduced the amount of levy going to the operations department, and we've held that pretty much static for the last 3 or 4 years. So when we do see an increase in revenue, we're putting that into the lands reserve as a building the base for capital, for the land's capital replacements and refurbishments that we're going to over time. And the final one is stewardship. So the money that we get in stewardship is not money that we get allocated. It's money that's coming in from grant funding, and it's earmarked for very specific types of work. So when we see a surplus or deferred revenue, we need to plug that away. So that's what we've done. And so once we take those actual surpluses, put them in reserves, we did come out with a balanced budget this year. So I know when we spoke at the third quarter, we were worried that we would have a deficit, but we were able to manage the budget across the broader scope of the budget to balance it out. Some of the things that did help with that as well is within the admin department, we saw our insurance finally go up less than we thought. So for several years in a row, we didn't budget enough for insurance, and the year that we finally do put the right amount in, insurance rates dropped, the market softened, and better for it. We also saw substantially higher gains on our investments, which our money in tax-free savings than we would have expected at the beginning of the year because of the change in the market and the increase in rates. So those are things that helped us as well. On the capital budget side, we were underspent, and so that's a variety of reasons. So some of the projects didn't get as far along as we thought they might, and so we had $100,000 pull from reserves for this building. We're not there yet. So it just doesn't come out of reserves, but it looks like underspent in the budget. Morgan and his team did a fantastic job of coming in under budget on practically every capital project we took this year through a variety of methods. So we were able to save a lot of money that would otherwise come from reserves that way. And then one thing that we did show was a little bit more spent in year than we budgeted at the beginning of the year was Clendenin Dam. So we were able to secure more funding from the province. It's called WECI, is our short form for it. It's water and erosion control infrastructure. And they do 50-50 funding on water and erosion control infrastructure. So Clendenin being a flood control dam, we were able to replace all of the static logs that don't get raised and lowered every year within the dam structure, so that we can refurbish that dam. So that the work to build the logs has already been done. Morgan and his team have done that, and John is working on a plan for when they're actually going to get placed in the dam. But that's really, really good news. What that means is all that money comes from the dam reserve anyway. So what it means is we actually will secure more money from the province to help us fund that infrastructure. So beyond that, and Nelson, I'm not sure if you want to speak to the reserve specifically or just if there are questions on it.
I was thinking they might have some questions on how to
Okay.
I don't think I need this question.
So at the bottom of the staff report, which I hope you've all had an opportunity, we've detailed in there the transfers that we want to make from the surplus at the end of the year, the Q4 surplus, into the various reserves. And in one instance for risk management, actually transferring out of reserve into the operating balance. I can explain that if you have questions about that. We like to do this at the end of every year when we present Q4, so that anybody moving in and out of reserves, the board knows about and the board has approved. I would note that we haven't gone through our financial audit yet. Allison's been working diligently to get all the materials prepared for the auditor, and they'll be here, I think, next week or the week after. So these numbers may change slightly, but the overall principle of what we're looking at will remain exactly the same. So we'd like the board to approve these transfers. The other thing that we'd like to do is, up until right now, any monies that have come in for their stewardship are being held in the admin reserve. We'd like to create a separate stewardship reserve to clean that up and make sure that it's very clear what's earmarked to stewardship and what's not. We don't have to look in the back end every time to figure that out. We can just know that's the stewardship reserve, and the point of the stewardship reserve is to hold those funds. The reason that we have funds to hold is it can be one of two reasons. Sometimes it's because different year ends. So we might get a grant funding from the Ministry of the Environment and their year end is March 31st. So we have deferred revenue, just a straight carried over in the following year. Or it could be a broader federal grant like Environment Canada, where it might be a 3-year grant. Over 3 years, we're going to do these projects. And so that money is obviously going to sit in the reserve or the bank account until we get to that point. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair, and if you have any questions about this.
Thank you, Tim. Very extensive. Any questions for Tim or Allison? That'd be great.
Just a couple, if you could just update, I've got a couple highlights. And first off, I apologize for not being able to phone Allison or Tim in advance. Just didn't get the opportunity yesterday. Underwater management, reallocation of that staff time to a project funded by WECI. And then second question is under stewardship, where I've got highlighted the transfer of $35,000 to reserve for wages. It's not often to see wages as part of deferred revenue. So I was wondering if the WECI funding ties into that, if there's some association there between those projects. And the wages, is this something that are forthcoming wages over and above the resources that the Conservation Authority has now? Otherwise, those wages would have got consumed last year, because it's not like the person didn't work for half the year. So I'm just wondering why the consideration of wages is part of that.
So they're not related. The WECI, we were able to allocate staff time as part of the grant funding. So the money that we receive from the province becomes surplus in that we were able to spend that on wages, and that means it's not spending other earmarked money on wages. That's correct, Council. Yeah.
And one of the reasons we've shown, we pulled the wages into the capital side of the budget, because that's where the funding is shown. So the wages portion of it was about $4,600. So Becky covered half of that, levy dollars covered the other half. And then the remainder of the money spent was on materials. Was partly covered by Becky and partly by.
Okay, yeah, I remember seeing those. They were pretty small dollar amounts in the wrap up, 2,200 and 2,700 or something like that.
And then for stewardship, so currently the stewardship program is staff time. It's the only thing we really show in the budget. Staff time and a bit of materials, because we don't always know the full scope of grants that we're going to get to be able to carry out projects. So it's about 50-50 between levy funding for that, which is a Category 3 program, for that staff person, and then 50% coming from grant funding. So we actually have to go to the book for grant funding to cover the other half of the staff person. With the different year ends, sometimes we'll get a grant and we can put that money in here towards a person, and we're able to offset it with levy dollars. The reason that we don't want to say for the following year that we're saying, okay, well, we were able to hold over X amount of levy dollars, so we don't need it the next year, that would come back to bite us pretty badly, because either A, we're not going to get the grant funding in the following year, and so we need that, say, 2023 levy dollars to offset the 2024 grant that's not there. Or in the future, we've reduced that levy dollars, and now we have to go back and ask the municipalities for a 2% increase just to cover the money that we chunked off because we got a grant 1 year, if that makes sense. So it's about stabilizing the fund. That's really what it comes down to.
Okay.
Like we're not going to, sorry, I was going to say, we're not going to come forward and tie it. We're going to say, we were fortunate enough this year to get a grant to offset this. So the money that was earmarked for that is going to go into this reserve, still earmarked for that. So when the time comes that we need it, it's there.
Yeah, I just wondered if it was over and above existing resources then. Because the person can only do so much work in a year. That's when you defer the revenue for wages, you're anticipating then not allocating something in the budget for the same wages that your deferred revenue transaction is going to, is your credit debit is just moving from column A to B. So, okay. Yeah, it's just unusual to see wages in the deferred revenue because it's usually a project or a service that is not yet expended.
Just the 35,000 is going to the reserve, not to deferred. It's the 30,000 that's going into deferred revenue, and that is for projects. That's not.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I will call a vote on the resolution. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Point B, going to be a 2023 Q4 investment portfolio update. And the resolution, attachment 14 in your package, reads that the board of directors received the GSCA 2023 fourth quarter portfolio update as information. May I have a mover and a second, please? From Member Bell, thank you. Okay, who is going to Allison?
I just wanted to give you just a brief update. Portfolio, excuse me, portfolio manager is coming next month to present to you where we are at with our portfolio, but just a little heads up where we're at the end of the year. I know in December 2022, our portfolio had pretty much tanked. So this December we have a good news story. We're about 120,000 higher in value at the end of 23. And just as a today's update, we're another 42,000 earned this year on the portfolio. So it's coming back. More specifically, the interest on the higher savings account, we're now earning 14%, so that has helped with the increase in the value of the portfolio. And the I always forget the initials, the SCG that we had invested in 2021 has finally started to make some money. We were pretty much either losing on it or it was just breaking even. But it's now moved higher value. About 300,000 in that.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I will call for a vote to approve that resolution. All in favor? Approved. Thank you very much. Thank you, Awesome. Items: water management, operations, conservation lands, communication, public relations, education, and GIS, IT. There's nothing to report at this time. Or the drinking water as well. So let's move to the CAO's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I feel like a lot of the things I've actually been working on, we've already covered in this meeting today, which is great. But one thing I did want to touch base on is that one of the requests from the board of directors at the December board meeting was that the chair and the vice chair and I meet with our local MPPs, so MPP Byers and MPP Saunderson. Still have not been able to set up a time that works with MPP Saunderson, but we can work on that. But Member Dubick, or Vice Chair Dubick, and I met with MPP Byers on the 16th, was the Friday, and the meeting went well. MPP Byers was very receptive to what we had to say, understanding that his party has, they've taken the path forward that they're choosing to take. They have a goal of more houses and increased development, and they're moving down that path. And obviously the information that we received from Minister Smith that was presented at the January meeting was that everybody has to do their part, and the cuts to to Conservation Authority fees for planning and development are just us doing our part towards more homes built faster. I think MPP Byers was receptive to the idea that we made a couple key points for him. So one is that conservation authorities are trying to be more self-sufficient. So we're not being funded by the province. Municipalities can only take so much. So we're trying to find the difference to make sure that we're running our programs sustainably. It's hard for us to do that if we can't manage our fees to meet our needs. And so one point that we had made to him is even if the minister had made it such that they're frozen, save and accept inflation, at least then we're not moving backwards. At least then we're still keeping pace with. We did point out that the fee freeze subsidizes development on the backs of all taxpayers. So developers do stand to make money on these developments, and the rest of the tax base does not. And so developers should pay for development. And so we made that point, and that the free fees, is not specific to just housing development. We deal with a lot of different types of planning applications and permit applications here. They're not just subdivisions. So there's an opportunity for the government to either say, A, we're only going to target this where it relates to subdivisions, so that that is our more faster. Or if the concern is actually cost, because quite honestly, Gray Sauble charging $15,000 or $20,000 across an entire subdivision with $100 million+ homes, it means nothing, right? So there's an opportunity that we presented as well to say, even if you said this is for low-income housing, you will not increase your fees on low-income housing, and there's a minimum fee or whatever it is. Those are options if we really want to say this is our goal, how do we reach it? And I think the one that resonated most with MVP buyers was the idea that it's actually counterproductive or counterintuitive, because if you want to get more homes built faster, and these reviews have to happen because legislation says they have to happen, they don't have to resource the agencies that have to do that review. If you want quality time in review, pay for quality time. And so those were well received, and MVP buyers has agreed to speak with some other ministers on our behalf to sort of spread that message about why this is working, or why it's maybe not the best approach to achieve the goals that the government has set for themselves. Moving on a similar theme, I have received our planning numbers from the Manager of Environmental Planning for the year. So for 2023, our team was successful in issuing 338 permits. We do participate in Conservation Ontario's tally of how many did you get within provincial timelines and within Conservation Authority's more restrictive timelines, which we set as conservation authorities for ourselves. So we issued those permits. 97% of those permits were issued within the provincial timeline, and 93% of those permits were issued within the more restrictive Conservation Ontario timeline. We lack the sophistication in our database to track things like, if an application comes in and we start to review it and we have to send it back to the applicant, how long does it take, like just a clock pause, things like that. So there are always anomalies like that that can be the reason for why isn't it 100%. But I think when I saw these numbers, I was quite impressed with the team. I thought these are really good numbers, and I'm pretty proud of these numbers, especially in a year of flux like we had last year. I think it's really nice.
Member Maxwell, do you have a question for Diego? You're muted, Alex.
Thank you. Thank you, CEO Tim, for bringing that up about the timelines. And I guess you're talking specifically to Bill 109 and Bill 23 and about the need to make compliance on zoning and plan the subdivisions in a certain timeline. I'm just wondering, have you got any ideas on the use of holding zones in order to meet that challenge? Thank you.
I'm sorry, Member Maxwell, I'm going to withhold a comment on that. I'm not sure it's within the frame of my report.
Okay, I'll refer to a planner at some point in time at the Gray Sauble. Thank you.
So moving on, later that day, we actually received new legislation from the province related to the Conservation Authorities Act. So we've been waiting for new regulation for Section 28, or the development section of the Conservation Authorities Act, as well as proclamation of several areas of the Act that have been written over the last couple of years, but we're still grayed out within the legislation until proclamation. So we've received that now. No warning, of course, Friday afternoon, that it was coming. And so what we're looking at is a transition period that lasts from now until April 1st, when everything is in full swing. That's a very short transition period for the amount of things that are changing. So essentially what happens is, currently the development regulations for the 36 different conservation authorities are 36 different regulations, but they read pretty much identical. So you may hear the province use terms like, we're standardizing conservation authorities, we're making it one regulation. Yes, but they already were kind of one. That's why it was originally called the generic regulation. But now what they've done is they've pulled a lot of the meat out of the
regulation, put it in the act itself, and there will be one regulation for all 36 conservation authorities. This new regulation is called Prohibited Activities, Exemptions, and Permits. It's great. But, so I'm not going to talk too much about it today. Matt will be, or staff will be bringing forward a fulsome report at the March board meeting. We only just learned about this about a week ago. But what is going to change is that the reduction or the regulated area on wetlands is being reduced. So currently, provincially significant wetlands will get 120 meter regulated buffer. All wetlands will have a 30 meter regulated buffer. Some stream systems will be removed from the regulated systems. They don't have sides or banks. So we do have some mapping updates that we need to do. We have some policy changes that we need to do. So I think what we're going to try to do, because of the short turnaround, is we'll probably change the wetland buffers because that's easy. We may leave the water course ones and deal with them on a case-by-case basis as they come up and assess them at those times. In terms of the policy changes, for now, we may keep it simple and just change the names where the regulation references are to keep it, to reduce the workload, but make a plan to change it over a longer period of time as the capacity grows. So, but we do have some new policies that we're required to have by April 1st. And so this will be a policy for pre-consultation, a procedure for administrative review of the permit process. So what this is going to mean is that if our staff were to do a complete application review, which you'll be familiar with under municipal planning bylaws, and they deem it to not be complete, or they say we need these types of applications to be complete, a person can ask for an administrative review of that to say, is this the case? And we'll probably come back with things that would come to be the next step would come, and something along those lines, so that we can temper that, so that it's not just every person says I don't want to do this. And then we need a timeline policy. So the timelines I spoke to just previously, my last point, those are actually being set in legislation so that we have to provide a report every year to the public and to the MNR that says this is how we compare to those timelines, and we need a system for managing that. So we will work on that. As I mentioned, staff will provide a more fulsome report at the next board meeting in time for the board to hopefully be able to approve some of these things for the April 1st transition timeline. And the one other thing that comes into effect, which we had known about, we were just waiting for the hammer to drop on it, is a new single regulation for all conservation areas, for conservation areas. So again, similarly, each conservation authority has their own regulation that relates to conservation areas. They all read the same. There's a new one that's going to replace them all. The only real difference has to do with, or the biggest difference has to do with essentially people's dogs on our property. So they've really expanded the domestic animals pieces to capture the fact that people really do need to be good pet owners when they're on conservation for properties. So I don't see a lot of impact to us for that, but it's part of the bigger suite of things, as well as, like I said, all the great other things that include the ability for the minister to issue permits and a bunch of different appeal processes to so the minister might be hiring extra staff. And that's it for me, Mr. Chair. See the government still giving the time to do things.
Thank you. So just a quick comment on the North Fire meeting. I just wanted to say that I thought it was on board set. So, I thought it was very positive just to reinforce that. And also, just want to thank Tim for doing an outstanding job in that conversation. We were really to hear the key concepts. And given the fact that Rick is also a numbers guy, onto issues very quickly, and it's very supportive to put on the other people, his colleagues' ears. So that supportive nature and struggles for this. And the group being material is also not very good and very succinct to the point. I think it's just good for everybody to have those key messages. It's good for us
to and some background. I just want to say that.
And what I would note, yes, Vice Chair Duvick had asked me to circulate that off the board, quite ill last week, so that fell off my radar.
Yes, Tim's voice is failing as we speak. He's managing through. Chair's report, early days, so I really don't have it yet, so I'm just trying to get moving.
It's good, it's already 4:10.
Yeah, really, you want me to lumber on? So resolution to move into closed session. That the GSCA Board of Directors now move into closed session to consider one, minutes of the closed session of the regular Board of Directors meeting held on December 19th, 2023, and two, 2024 CAO work plan closed as it relates to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including authority directors or authority employees, GSCA Administrative Bylaw Section 417B, and further the CAO Tim Land